Within the grand hall, a young boy looks upon his newly granted power, a single thought echoing in his mind. Isn't this a garbage gift? His dismay is palpable. The ability to summon mere weeds is deemed laughable by those around him. Beside him, a young girl named Litina looks on with wide, concerned eyes, whispering his name, Left. The boy's mind drifts away from the present, thinking back to a different life. He recalls an inn that felt as insignificant as a weed, the memory taking the form of a sprawling, modern cityscape under a starless night sky. In that past life, he lay bleeding out on a cold, hard surface, unable to move. His gaze fell upon dandelions gone to seed as he questioned if this was truly his end. He had but one regret. As his life faded, a shadowy figure loomed over him, their voice dripping with condescension as they asked if the fun times were over. The last thing he remembered was the sight of a revolver and that final, deeply disappointed voice. And so, he breathed his last. The memory dissolves, and he finds himself awake and alive, kneeling in a field of flowers. He looks down at his own hands, startled by how small they are, and wonders where he could possibly be. He crawls to a nearby pool of water and peers at his reflection. The face that stares back is not his own. It is the face of a young, blonde child. The shock of this new reality washes over him. As the confusion begins to settle, a name surfaces from the depths of his new consciousness. He remembers now. He has left Austria. He stands before a grand mansion, fully aware of his situation. He is left, the third son of the Baron. But at the same time, he still possesses every memory from his past life, a life spent working desperately in a country called Japan. It is a strange, unsettling feeling, having two complete sets of memories suddenly merge into one. He stands in the well-maintained garden of his family's estate, his quiet contemplation interrupted by a familiar voice, wondering if he was napping there again. The voice belongs to Litina, who appears with a burst of energy. She announces that she has come to play again today and demands that he be thoroughly grateful for her presence. She is Litina B. Vanum, the eldest daughter of a viscount, and has been his fiancée since they were both 3 years old. She's also his only friend of the same age. Eagerly, she asks what they should play, suggesting they play house, which elicits a weary sigh from him. He asks if they could perhaps play something different for once, but she flatly refuses. She explains that this is a rehearsal for their future, reminding him that not all married couples get along well. Taking his hand, she pulls him along, telling him not to be shy and to take a seat. He reluctantly complies with a quiet, "Oh, okay." Their game of house begins with high drama. Speaking through her doll, Litina accuses his doll of giving a gift to another lady and declares she is breaking off their engagement. Her doll then shouts that his misdeeds end here. Left, through his own doll, can only express confusion, stating he doesn't remember that. She continues the elaborate scenario, explaining that the other woman was wearing a limited edition bracelet sold only at the local town branch. She claims their butler found the purchase receipt in his drawer, and that she even confirmed it with the store. Internally, Left marvels at how realistic the setting is for a game played by an 8-year-old. Cornered by the evidence, his doll stammers in disbelief. Latina's doll accuses him of two-timing her. Getting swept up in the drama, Left has his doll apologize profusely, promising to stop flirting. He then raises the doll high, proclaiming that at the next soiree, he will proudly declare his love is dedicated only to Litina, which makes her beam with happiness. The performance leaves him utterly spent, face down on a cushion. Litina, however, is thrilled, praising his improved acting and admitting her heart is racing. Their dolls, meanwhile, comment that the play is getting too mature and suggest the next setting will be adultery. With a look of utmost seriousness, she declares that playing house isn't just a game. He holds his doll, a single thought running through his mind, but it is just playing house. He was taken aback by her next words. With wide, sincere eyes, Litina confessed her desire to stay close to him forever. She then elaborated on her intense logic, holding up a doll and proclaiming that their game of playing house is a critical endeavor. Her goal, she explained, is to proactively experience and solve any potential marital problems they might face in the future, thereby reducing the risk of any serious falling out. He could only stare, a bit stunned by her precocious reasoning, murmuring her name in disbelief. Despite his surprise, he found himself agreeing with her. He admitted that he, too, wants a harmonious marriage and promised to do his best at their game. His words brought a bright smile to Latina's face. He realized that Latina's passion stemmed from a genuine and serious consideration for their shared future. And so, their unusually mature game of playing house continued. The thought, he admitted to himself, made him happy as well. 2 years pass. On a significant day, Left, now older and dressed in fine formal wear, walks with a dignified air. Onlookers murmur in admiration, noting his poise and calling him the prodigy, the star of the day's event. His father, Count Austria, listens with pride as others remark on the boy's exceptionally high magical power, their excitement palpable. Left observes them, understanding that they are already trying to curry favor. Just then, a familiar voice calls out. Litina, beautifully dressed for the occasion, rushes towards him, eagerly asking if he has received his gift yet. As he watches her approach, a simple, fond thought crosses his mind. She is incredibly cute. He smiles warmly at Litina, telling her that her formal dress suits her well. Startled to see him, she simply asks, "Left?" Her face flushes a deep red as she blurts out that he is absolutely adorable. Immediately embarrassed by her own outburst, she whips her head away from him. He calls out her name in confusion, caught off guard by her sudden reaction. The reason for her behavior becomes clear as her father appears, sternly reminding her that running in the church is unladylike and that she must be polite. Latina looks down, meekly apologizing. Watching the exchange, he recalls that Latina's parents are notoriously strict about her education. He knows that her only real enjoyment comes from the time she spends playing at his home. He reflects on their future. As his fiancée, she will one day join his family, and he is determined to ensure she will always be smiling by his side. For her sake, he hopes for a good gift from this ceremony. His thoughts are interrupted when his father tells him not to be nervous and calls him to the altar. Heeding the call, he kneels before a large crystal orb placed on the altar, clasping his hands to offer his prayers. As he finishes, the priest looks from the orb to the boy, his eyes wide with surprise as he begins to announce the result. Glowing letters materialize inside the crystal. The priest reads the words aloud for all to hear. Plant Encyclopedia. The strange gift causes a stir. The priest admits he has never seen such a thing. Left's father wonders if it is a gift unknown even to the church, while his mother questions if it is a unique gift. While he stood bewildered by his new gift, others in the audience began to discuss the outcome. Latina's father remarked that a unique gift made Left more than qualified as a future husband for his daughter. Her mother agreed, noting it was expected that high magical power would result in a rare gift. Latina, for her part, simply acknowledged the event as something to be expected from a prodigy. The conversation underscored the immense weight of the day's events. This blessing ceremony was known to determine a person's entire future. A powerful gift could pave the way for a successful life, whereas a mediocre one would make that same path significantly more difficult. For Left, the stakes were clear, and he had approached the altar with a heart full of hope, anticipating a special blessing. His hopeful anticipation, however, had given way to the present confusion. The priest, leaning in, asked him directly if he understood the nature of his plant encyclopedia gift. Left affirmed that he did. It is a mysterious quality of these gifts that their owner instinctively grasps how to use them, and as if to prove this, the encyclopedia had already materialized in his hands. He examined the object, a thin, ornate book. His first thought was that for an encyclopedia, it was surprisingly slim. Despite its size, he resolved to use it. Opening the book, he saw that its pages were filled with detailed illustrations of various plants. As he focused on an entry, a faint light emanated from his hand. A small, three-leafed plant materialized from thin air, hovering above his palm. The priest, startled, cried out, asking what it was. He calmly identified it as a common weed, explaining that it seemed he could materialize any plant depicted within the encyclopedia. The priest's mind raced with the implications, his voice rising in astonishment as he asked if this power extended to creating legendary ingredients for elixirs, such as the fabled divine grass. He quickly consulted the book again, flipping through its pages. After a moment, he delivered the disappointing news. The divine grass was not listed in the encyclopedia, and therefore, he could not create it. The priest hummed thoughtfully, processing this limitation. His mind shifted to another possibility, and he asked if the book at least contained entries for the high-grade herbs needed to create advanced potions. He frantically flipped through the pages of his encyclopedia, searching for any herb of value. The priest, leaning closer, pressed him, asking if even low-grade herbs were listed. With growing dismay, Left had to admit that they, too, were absent. In a final desperate attempt, he managed to materialize a single, tiny plant. It sprouted on the pedestal next to the crystal ball, a common weed. The priest stared down at it, his expression unreadable, his silence heavy in the air. A soft sound escaped his lips as the full weight of the situation began to dawn on him. His eyes widened in shock as whispers erupted from the onlookers behind him. From the gallery, the other nobles began to murmur. Latina's parents expressed their disappointment after all the anticipation, remarking on how pitiful it was for the Austria family. Seizing the opportunity, Latina's father took her by the arm. He declared they were leaving and would formally inform the Austrias that the engagement was now off. Latina could only stare, stunned by her father's abrupt decision. As her father pulled her away, she reached out a hand, her face a mask of disbelief and protest. His parents moved to his side, his mother embracing him while his father rested a reassuring hand on his head. But the damage was done. From that day forward, he became known throughout the town as an object of pity. His gift, once a source of hope, had branded him. He was now the weed user. Faced with this cruel reality, the question of what he would do now hung in the air. In the estate gardens, Left Austria matches a flower to an illustration in his plant encyclopedia. With a satisfied smile, he materializes the bloom, noting it is the 7th plant he has successfully brought into existence this way. Later, at his desk surrounded by his collection, he calls for the head maid, Kyra. She appears promptly, and he requests more paper for drying his specimens. Kyra acknowledges his request and asks if he found another new plant from his book, to which he confirms he did. She remarks on the large number of plants he has collected in such a short period. His cheerful demeanor fades as he looks down, thinking to himself that he has simply had more free time since Latina stopped visiting. He quietly agrees with her, trying to offer some comfort, Kyra suggests that Lady Latina must simply be busy with other matters. His attention is then drawn to a familiar sight outside, Latina's family carriage. As he peers out, a hand suddenly grasps his, pulling him back. It is Latina herself. Startled, he looks at her as she brings a finger to her lips, urging silence. She whispers that she has come to see him in secret, leaving him to wonder why she is hiding. She explains that her butler was thoughtful enough to allow her to accompany him in the carriage. Her expression saddens as she delivers grave news. At that very moment, she says her parents are likely informing his parents that they are breaking off their engagement. The image of their fathers sitting in a formal meeting flashes through his mind. Latina adds that, as a result, he is now forbidden from contacting her. She explains that her father is a ruthless man who believes only in meritocracy and will not be swayed. The thought makes her ill. With trembling hands, she tells Left that even though they won't be able to see each other for a while, she trails off, leaving him to stare in stunned silence. He recalled a happier time, sitting across from Latina as he asked what she wanted to do for fun that day. She had dismissed their usual game of playing house, wiping a tear from her eye as she insisted that, for today, she wanted to do whatever he wished. Enthused by her answer, he had declared they would go plant hunting. From a nearby window, his parents and the head maid watched them play. His father remarked that Left might become a plant researcher, and his mother accepted an offer for more tea. His mother reflected that all she could do was extend the time the two children had together. His father agreed, adding that they had come to think of Latina as part of their family. During their search, she had pointed to an illustration in his plant encyclopedia, telling him she wanted to see the beautiful white grass next. He identified the plant as snow cotton grass and, consulting his knowledge, explained that it only grew in cold temperatures, making it unlikely they would find it now. Latina listened, taking in his words. She thought to herself how smart Left was with his unique and rare gift. The memory soured as she recalled that the gift her own father desired was one of straightforward strength. The memory brought her back to the present, where her father's disapproval would now forbid them from even meeting. She grew frantic, hating herself for the jealous thought that other girls would surely not leave such a wonderful boy alone. He saw her distress and gently spoke her name, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. In his outstretched hand, he had materialized the very flower from her memory, the snow flare, the snow cotton grass, and offered it to her. She could only stare, completely stunned. She stared at the flower in her hand, surprised, and asked if he had found it. He clarified that he hadn't found it, but had materialized it directly from his encyclopedia. As she took in the magical creation, a man in a butler's uniform called out to her. With a radiant smile, she thanked Left, telling him the flower was beautiful. Their moment was interrupted by the head maid, who apologized but insisted it was time for them to return to the carriage. Left watched, a look of dismay crossing his face as their time together was cut short. As she began to walk away, he desperately called out her name, shouting for them to play again. Latina stopped, her expression somber as she looked back at him. His plea brought tears to her eyes. Despite her sadness, she managed a bright, hopeful smile and promised him that, of course, they would. With that final promise made, she turned and entered her carriage, her melancholic face visible for a moment through the window as it began to pull away. Left watched it go, silently apologizing to her. Nearby, his mother thanked the butler, Sebastian, for bringing him, to which the man replied it was his pleasure. Inside the moving carriage, Latina realized that if things continued as they were, she would never see Left again. She asked her maid what she should do. The maid advised that she must first become independent from her father's protection, which would require power and money. With this understanding, Latina resolved to obtain everything she needed herself, a goal her maid felt certain she could achieve. Later, back in his home, Left stood before a doll resembling Latina, the stark realization dawning on him. He could not see her anymore. His small shadow stretched across the floor, emphasizing his solitude. He sat alone in the darkness of an empty room, consumed by a feeling of loneliness. A young woman with wavy hair appeared in the doorway, asking him why he was sitting in the dark. He looks down at a small, handmade doll, his expression filled with sorrow. His parents, standing behind him, offer words of comfort. His mother gently places a hand on his head, reassuring him that gifts don't matter. He is, and always will be, their precious son. Overwhelmed by their kindness, he breaks down into tears, clutching the doll tightly. As his parents watch with solemn faces, he makes a silent vow to become a fine person, someone they can proudly call their son. About a month passes since the blessing ceremony. During that time, he has been meticulously drying and pressing paper, preparing it for some purpose. He reflects on his progress with the plant encyclopedia. He has already discovered all the plants listed in the book that grow within their garden, except for those that are out of season. The thought that he could complete his divine gift simply by waiting for the seasons to change feels strangely anticlimactic. This line of thinking leads to a sudden, startling question. Is it possible that his encyclopedia is limited only to the plants in their garden? The realization hits him with the force of a revelation. A new possibility ignites within him, and he leaps from his seat, galvanized by the idea. He bolts from the room, calling out for the head maid, Kyra. He announces that there is something he needs her to buy for him immediately. He considers his encyclopedia again. Compared to the thick botanical tomes sold in this world, his book is clearly much thinner. This observation strengthens his new theory. He wonders what might happen if he were to encounter a plant that doesn't grow in their garden. He recalls the priest's words from the ceremony, explaining that the god's blessing is an ingredient for elixirs, and that high-grade medicinal herbs are also required. A knock at the door signals Kyra's return. She addresses him as Master Left and presents a small basket, informing him that she has brought the low-grade medicinal herb he requested. He accepts it with an eager thank you. He returns to his room, placing the basket of newly acquired herbs on his desk with purpose. In the quiet of the room, he stands before the desk, his mind focused entirely on the impending experiment. He holds his plant encyclopedia near the herbs, observing intently. He concludes that nothing happens just by looking at it. He must continue testing. He realizes that even taking a plant out and staring at it yields no change. His next thought is to try touching it directly. With a steady hand, he reaches out and gently places his fingers on the medicinal herb. The moment his skin makes contact, his eye widens in shock. The low-grade medicinal herb vanishes from the desk. He looks down at his encyclopedia and sees that it has been newly registered, the number of pages having increased. He succeeded. A new sensation follows his success. He feels magic draining from his body, coalescing into a bright orb of light in his hand. The light solidifies, forming a perfect replica of the very herb that had just disappeared. Stunned by this revelation, he calls out urgently for his father and mother. He bursts in on his parents, holding the newly created plant aloft. He declares that he has something to tell them, and something he needs to ask. From a hidden vantage point, an observer watched the town square. Their eyes were fixed on a small figure in the distance. It was that child, the one they had been seeing so often lately. The observer, a sharp-eyed young man, continued his watch. In the square below, a group of townsfolk murmured amongst themselves, noting that the boy was alone again today and questioning his purpose. The young man's expression was one of disdain. He knew the boy was the weed user and concluded he must simply be idle. He mulled over the title, his fingers tapping his chin as he quietly repeated the words, "Weed user." An older man beside him looked on, his expression one of shock. Unbeknownst to the gossiping crowd, this young man had perceived something more. He had discovered the true potential of the encyclopedia that Left carried. As Left Austria walks through the town alone, onlookers whisper behind his back. They label him a weed user and speculate that his own family must have given up on him. Despite their words, he seems to be enjoying himself, filled with a quiet determination. He thinks of his parents, hoping they will see what his hands can now do. He presents his hands to his parents, and a low-grade medicinal herb materializes from a flash of light. His mother and father are stunned. She recalls that the head maid, Kyra, was just about to go buy some. In response, Left reveals a bag overflowing with the same plants. He proudly explains that he created all of them just moments ago. After some research, he tells his father he learned that materializing one herb requires only 124 magic power, which means he can now produce them in large quantities. His father, Count Austria, is astounded by this revelation. He immediately decides to go to the church priest and the Bevanum family to explain everything, certain that this will overturn Left's evaluation and restore the engagement. But Left urgently stops him, insisting there's no need for that. The Count questions his son's reluctance, arguing that this incredible skill is something everyone should know about. Left counters with a serious warning. If the true value of his ability spreads, there will be people who try to misuse it. His father pauses, visibly torn between ambition and concern for his son. Left recognizes this as a sign of his father's kindness. He then makes his decision, stating that he doesn't care about the malice of others and wants to keep his ability a secret just between them. His mother, however, brings up a different concern, asking if he is truly okay with parting ways with Litina. Left cheerfully replies that it's fine, explaining that in their dollhouse games, they've overcome many marital crises together, including serious themes like cheating and conspiracies, much to his parents' shock. He dismisses the concern with a smile, believing this situation is just another one of those crises and that Litina likely feels the same. Elsewhere, Litina sits quietly as her butler, Sebastian, serves her tea, her expression thoughtful. In their separate homes, their resolve aligns. Litina determines that she must gain power and rank first in the entrance exam. Left, equally resolute, promises to himself that he will be fine, vowing that he will definitely come for her. He expressed his gratitude, and his father, after a moment of thought, agreed to keep the boy's ability a secret. The man then correctly surmised that to progress with the plant encyclopedia, his son would need to verify various plants. Left confirmed this with an enthusiastic yes. His father offered to prepare as many useful plants as possible, but Left politely declined, stating it wasn't necessary. Instead, he made a different request, permission to go into town by himself. His request was eventually granted. First, he ventured out with servants on several occasions to confirm the town's safety. Their assessment concluded that there was little danger for a child to walk alone along the main street. With the area deemed safe, he was allowed to go out alone, but only during the day and with a strict 3-hour time limit. He considered the 6 silver coins his father had given him as pocket money. It was a substantial sum, given that a single silver coin could pay for 2 nights at cheap inn. He formulated a plan, suspecting his father gave him extra for buying plants. He would use 5 silver coins for adventure registration, then sell a bag of his materialized medicinal herbs to the guild. This would cover the cost of any plants he needed for the encyclopedia. With his mind made up, he strode towards the Adventurers Guild. The moment he stepped inside, he was met with hostility. A man with a mohawk behind a counter sneered, asking when the place became a daycare. A group of burly adventurers agreed, telling the boy that the guild was no place for brats, and that he should go home to his mother. He was immediately taken aback, a bead of sweat forming on his cheek as he realized he was being harassed right from the start. The taunts continued as one of the men crudely suggested he go to his father instead. Leff could only think how utterly stupid the comment was. Despite their behavior, he noted their proper equipment, a sign they might be skilled adventurers. One of them told him he was in the wrong building and to go home. Ignoring the intimidation, Leff looked them straight in the eye and declared firmly, "I came here to register as an adventurer." He stood his ground, shouting with unwavering resolve that he would not leave until his registration was complete. The adventurers, taken aback by his audacity, could only stammer in disbelief, one of them labeling the boy a mere shrimp. His gaze was so direct and intense that the men recoiled, shielding their eyes as if from a blinding light, questioning what was wrong with the kid. The man with the afro tried a different approach, telling the determined boy he should just give up. He reasoned that a shrimp couldn't handle being an adventurer. Leff clarified that he only wanted to register for now, not start activities immediately, and asked if there was a problem with that. The adventurer with the mohawk declared that there was indeed a big problem. Allowing a shrimp like him to register would lower the status of all adventurers. Leff, unfazed, questioned what kind of profession would have its status lowered by a single child's registration. His sharp retort angered the men, who accused him of having a smart mouth. Just as the confrontation escalated, the group of adventurers spotted their leader, calling out to Big Bro Abuchi. A large, scarred man stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. He repeated their insult. "Little shrimp, you say?" as Leff noted that even more of them had appeared. The leader's eyes narrowed in recognition. I've seen you," he stated. One of his men quickly explained that the tiny boy was ignoring their warnings and trying to register as an adventurer. He identified Leff as the weed user, the kid whose gift could only produce weeds. With a dismissive wave, he told him to scram, declaring that the world of adventurers was not simple enough for someone like him to handle. In response to the command, Leff offered a single, unwavering word: no. His defiance stunned the adventurer leader. Leff passionately explained that he had finally gotten permission to go out alone and had come all this way. He declared that he had no intention of turning back now. The leader's surprise twisted into anger. "You," he growled, reaching a hand toward the boy. "Are you mocking us?" His large hand clamped down firmly on the boy's small wrist. Leff looked up, startled, as a new voice coolly remarked on the sight of an adult cornering a child. From behind them, the calm voice sliced through the tension, asking Abuchi if he was having fun. The bully's face twisted in shock as he recognized the speaker, a menacing aura seeming to emanate from the newcomer. The newcomer, a young man named Helio, casually waved a hand, dismissing the larger man with a simple sound of annoyance. Abuchi recoiled as if struck, clearly intimidated by Helio and his female companion. Abuchi broke into a cold sweat, realizing the situation was not good. He recognized not only Helio, but the woman, Mira, as well. The commotion also drew the attention of a guild receptionist, who stepped forward and firmly told Mr. Abuchi to stop picking on newcomers and unregistered people. Her reprimand, combined with the intimidating presence of the two adventurers, was enough. Abuchi clicked his tongue and ordered his men to leave. With the threat gone, Helio turned to Leff, patting his head and questioning why adults would bully a child. Leff looked up at his rescuer and offered a quiet word of thanks. He flashed a wide, fierce, but good-natured smile, revealing sharp canines. He acknowledged that Leff had been in quite a predicament. The young man's distinctive red hair and confident air were striking. He continued his praise, patting Leff's head again and declaring him amazing for having faced 4 much bigger men without even flinching. Though they had just met, Leff felt a surprising sense of ease around him, despite being flustered by the compliments. The boy's surprise gave way to genuine admiration. A blush spread across his cheeks as he thanked Helio again, exclaiming that he had been incredibly cool. Helio's smile softened at the earnest praise. Later, at the counter, the receptionist lamented to Helio that thanks to Mr. Abuchi's constant meddling, the number of new registrations had been decreasing. Helio agreed, but glanced over at Leff, adding that it seemed a promising one had just arrived. He listened, hearing the whispers and rumors about red-haired Helio. An image formed in his mind of the famed adventurer party, Fire Dragon Strike, a group led by a confident, dark-haired man. They were celebrated as the fastest party in history to raise their rank to be. As the rumors swirled, Helio turned to Mira, wondering aloud if their teammate, Ria, should be present. Mira agreed. He mused on their reputation as a well-balanced, up-and-coming team, correctly recalling their party's name, Fire Dragon Strike. With that, she resolved to fetch her, stating simply that she would call for Ria. She arrived at a bedroom door, peering over the large bed and calling out to her teammate. "Wake up, Ria," she urged, reminding her that they had a meeting with a client. From under the covers, a sleepy Ria stirred, her first question being whether the client was cute. Myra's response was direct and disappointing. "No, it's a chubby old man." Upon hearing this, Ria flopped back onto the bed with a groan, declaring that she didn't want to go. Watching her, Mira sighed internally, a look of resignation on her face as she realized this approach wasn't going to work. Their future encounter remained uncertain. At the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist Mira confirms she has received the 5 silver coins for Left's registration fee. She then gestures to a magical device on the counter, instructing him to place his hand upon it. Standing behind the boy, Helio asks if he can reach, as Left stretches forward to comply. As his hand makes contact, the device whirs to life and dispenses a card. Left watches with wide-eyed wonder, amazed at the magical machine's function. Mira hands him the newly created adventurer card, advising him not to lose it. She explains that while the guild will keep a spare copy, his is important. Clutching his card, Left happily agrees. With the registration formalities complete, she then asks Left how much he knows about the work of adventurers. He admits that while he's heard of monster subjugation and cave exploration, he doesn't really know the details. In response, Mira offers a brief explanation as she leads him and Helio toward a large bulletin board. She details how adventurers choose requests, each with a recommended rank and deadline, and bring the forms to the reception. She also mentions the option of forming parties and warns that missing a deadline results in a penalty. He listens intently, taking in the ranking system, which ranges from F to S. The realization dawns on him that he will have to begin his career at the very bottom, as an F-rank adventurer. Mira concludes her overview in front of the quest board, asking if there is anything else he would like to know or any other business he has with the guild. Taking the opportunity, Left opens his satchel and declares his intention to sell some low-grade medicinal herbs. He then reveals an enormous quantity of them, causing Mira to gasp in shock at the sight of 55 bundles. After her initial surprise, Mira regains her professional composure. She informs Left that they will count the herbs and calculate the payment, asking him to wait a moment while she processes the transaction. While waiting, Left internally reflects that 55 bundles is an unusually large amount for a child to bring, yet no one seems to be questioning it. He surmises this must be how the Adventurers Guild operates. His thoughts are interrupted by Helio, who asks if he intends to accompany him until the very end, explaining that he's only there because it's his day off. He followed his guide through the Adventurers Guild, offering his thanks. As they walked, he overheard other adventurers whispering, realizing with a hint of resignation that they were calling him the weed user here as well. His guide, Helio, suddenly turned to him with a curious expression and asked his age. Left answered plainly that he was 10 years old, a response that seemed to startle the older adventurer. Helio's eyes widened in disbelief. He couldn't reconcile the boy's tender age with the intensely contemptuous glare he had witnessed earlier. Left, for his part, simply looked back with a bright, innocent expression. Misinterpreting Helio's shock as concern, Left thought to himself what a nice person his guide was. Just then, the receptionist, Mira, returned to the counter, apologizing for the wait. She announced that the 55 bundles of low-grade medicinal herbs would sell for 2 copper coins per bundle. Mira then calculated the total, stating it came to 1 gold and 1 silver coin as she placed the payment on a tray. Left's eyes widened, stunned by the unexpectedly large sum. Before he could process the amount, Helio leaned forward, pointing to the tray. He calmly informed Mira that she had placed 3 gold coins there, not the one she had stated. He then turned to Left and explained the discrepancy. Since a guild member had caused trouble for the boy earlier, they had decided to add a little extra as compensation. Left gasped, pointing out that the payment was more than double the original amount. Mira feigned ignorance with a shrug. When Left questioned if it was really okay, Helio reassured him, saying that new adventurers need plenty of money when starting out. He accepted the generous payment with a nod. Though still surprised, he resolved to take what he could get. A bright smile spread across his face as he realized he could now buy even more plants. Across the guild hall, the dark-haired adventurer's eyes narrowed. A companion at his table whispered to him, "Did you hear that, Heiso?" 3 gold coins, he says. The adventurer, Heiso, remains silent, his gaze fixed and intense. He confirms that he has it, as Mira turns to call out to Helio, announcing her own success. This exchange prompts a confused Left to stammer a question, while a flustered Mira asks what Heiso means. With a sly grin, Heiso remarks that he was unaware Mira could perform a receptionist's duties so properly. He continues, noting that with her party, the Fire Dragon Strike, she's usually more casual. As Helio approaches, he explains that it's simply because they've known each other for so long, a reason Heiso seems to accept. With a bright smile and a thumbs up, he then declares that he found Myra's resolute demeanor from earlier to be quite cool, adding that he likes it. Left, overhearing the praise, has a sudden, mischievous realization. The compliment, however, sends Mira into a complete fluster, her face flushing as she stammers, unable to form a coherent word. She struggles to respond, first saying that she thinks favorably of everyone in their party. When Heiso casually acknowledges this, Mira gathers her courage and confesses directly to him that, of course, she likes him too. Yet, in the moment after her confession to Heiso, her gaze seems to drift, and she softly murmurs Helio's name. Having witnessed the entire dramatic exchange, Left pumps his fists in silent celebration, overjoyed that Mira managed to make her confession. Heiso, however, beams with a wide, friendly smile. He thanks her, then cheerfully announces that he'll be sure to let everyone else know. His completely oblivious response leaves Left utterly aghast, while Mira can only stare forward with an expression of profound, deadpan disappointment. He stood in stunned silence, unable to believe Heiso hadn't noticed Myra's confession. Mira, though visibly distressed, forced a gentle smile. She thanked Left for coming and wished him a safe journey home, to which he could only stammer a quiet agreement. As he stood there, a voice called out, telling him to wait. It was Helio, who announced they would leave together. He glanced around the area with a serious expression. His gaze swept over the onlookers before returning to Left. The reason for the escort became instantly clear to the boy. It was because he was carrying 3 gold coins. The adventurer apologized, asking Left to bear with him for a while and instructing him to hold his bag tightly. Left was bewildered, wondering why Helio would help him, especially after calling him a weed user. He quickly realized that walking alongside Helio had an entirely opposite effect to what he'd anticipated. From the corner of his eye, he could see other men looking on, their expressions tinged with envy. As they walked, Helio asked if Left understood the meaning of weed user. Left internally debated how much to reveal. He acknowledged to himself that the term referred to him, but decided to remain quiet about the planned encyclopedia, deeming it too risky despite his feeling that Helio was a good person. Helio explained that it was a derogatory term born from the blessing ceremony. Because the unique skill Left received had a modest effect, the crowd had been disappointed. He concluded that it was, in essence, a harsh insult. He then observed with a sly smile that for someone being insulted, Left didn't seem particularly upset. He cut to the heart of the matter, asking if the boy had already found some kind of workaround for his skill. Left was impressed by the adventurer's sharp insight. This level of perception, he realized, was to be expected from someone at the top. He admitted that he had just figured out how to use it properly. Helio smiled, finding the answer logical. He remarked that it was impossible for a unique skill to be completely worthless. He explains his need to stop by a shop that sells medicinal herbs and plants. Helio readily agrees, suggesting they go to a general store he recommends and offering to take him there personally. Upon their arrival, an older woman behind the counter dryly remarks that the noisy one, Helio, has arrived. Helio retorts, questioning her description of him as noisy and announcing that he has brought a customer. The woman's attention then shifts to the small boy beside him. Her gaze is sharp and appraising. She silently notes his well-made leather boots and the high-quality bag he carries, her expression thoughtful as she sizes him up. She concludes her assessment, admitting to herself that while she doesn't recognize which young master he is, it's clear he has money. With that thought, she decides that if he's a customer, she won't complain. She gestures across her shop, inviting him to take his time and look around. Given permission, Left's eyes widen with pure amazement. The shelves are stocked with countless ingredients, and the realization that he can choose anything he wants fills him with excitement. He wanders through the store, his face a mask of wonder, as the shopkeeper watches him from behind the counter with a knowing look. His excitement is quickly tempered by reality. He spots high-grade medicinal herbs that he desperately wants, but a quick check of his funds reveals he only has 12 coins. The simple dream of buying whatever he wishes shatters. Having made his selections, he approaches the counter with a basket. He informs the shopkeeper he'll take 5 plants and 2 antidote potions, a purchase that uses nearly his entire budget. The woman eyes his choices and asks what a young boy plans to do with them. He feigns ignorance, claiming his mother simply asked him to run an errand. The shopkeeper looks at him skeptically, remarking that for a simple errand, he seemed awfully serious while choosing his items. He left the shop as the owner, her face beaming, warmly invited him to come again. Internally, however, Left renewed his private vow. He must never misuse his ability. He clutched his purchase, his mind already on registering these new plants in his encyclopedia. He knew that carelessly materializing items could cause serious trouble for the kind old lady and potentially disrupt the local economy. Once outside, Helio thanked him for his patience, explaining that since it was his day off, all that remained was to take Left home. However, he added that he had a meeting with his party members at the inn to discuss a request for the following day. A sudden idea struck him, and he invited Left to join them, much to the boy's surprise. He quickly dismissed Left's hesitation, assuring him it wasn't a formal affair. With a confident smile, Helio added that it would actually be helpful if Left could come. Confused, Left wondered aloud how he could possibly be of any help. Helio simply reaffirmed that his presence would help a lot. With the matter settled, Helio led the way to their inn. He pushed open the door to a room and called out, asking if everyone was there. Left followed, now determined to be of assistance if he could. Inside, a man with dark hair named Heiso immediately questioned Helio about the child's presence. A young woman with bobbed hair, Mira, noted that everyone was present except for someone named Ria. Flustered by the attention, Left quickly introduced himself, explaining that Helio had helped him earlier. He bowed deeply, explaining that he had tagged along to observe and asked them to treat him well. Mira, finding him well-mannered, reached out and began to pat his head. As the head patting continued, Left internally sighed at being treated like a child yet again. Sensing his thoughts, Mira paused and asked if he had just been thinking something rude. With a slight pout, she proudly announced that she was 14 years old, which definitively made her his big sister. Left's eyes widened in surprise. Seeing his disbelief, she simply shrugged and dismissed his reaction. The young woman formally introduces herself as Mayu, the healer of Fire Dragon Strike, as she shakes Left's hand. Immediately after, a large, muscular man playfully ruffles the boy's hair, booming a friendly greeting and introducing himself as Gladiolus, the party's shield. Following the introductions, Heiso explains that their party has one more member. He turns to Miyu, asking if she could go wake her up, but Miyu seems hesitant, questioning if the person will even stir. Sensing the reluctance, Left volunteers to go himself. As he turns to leave, he briefly wonders why Mayu had glanced at him just a moment before. He proceeds down the hallway alone. Behind him, Haiso watches with a thoughtful expression while Mayu looks on. He reaches a door and pushes it open. Inside, a young woman with long, dark red hair is fast asleep, stirring slightly as the door creaks. Stepping into the sunlit room, he sees the woman's eyes flutter open. She stares directly at him, her expression one of pure, dazed wonder. Her gaze remains fixed on him. In her sleepy state, she murmurs a single, awestruck question. An angel. The next instant, her demeanor shifts entirely. With a wild cry and an almost demonic aura flaring around her, she launches herself out of bed and directly at the stunned boy. The rest of the party, having followed, can only watch in shock. His world goes dark as his face is pressed into something soft and fragrant. The woman has completely enveloped him in a tackle hug. As he is smothered, the others look on with a mixture of alarm and exasperation, questioning whether this beautiful woman is an angel or a demon. Left finds himself enveloped in a soft, warm embrace, his face flushing as he registers the overwhelming sensation. Beside him, Haiso offers a sheepish apology for the sudden situation. Haiso, looking slightly nervous, admits he never expected their meeting with the Fire Dragon Strike members to begin this way. He places a hand on the table, deciding to proceed, and announces that with Ryatris in a good mood, they should start. The reason for his predicament becomes clear. Left is seated snugly on Ria's lap. He is utterly bewildered, having found himself in this position without warning. He marvels at her speed. He couldn't even see her movements when she returned after tidying herself up. It is his first time experiencing the high-level physical abilities of a top adventurer firsthand. Ria gazes down at him, a blush on her cheeks, while Haiso remarks that he could only watch her from afar until now. But finally, he can touch her. Left, still flustered, resigns himself to the situation for now. In the background, Gladiolus grins knowingly as Mayu watches the scene unfold. Ria's excitement suddenly bursts forth. She hugs Left even tighter, her face contorted with joy as she loudly declares that he is her ideal. She continues to squeeze him affectionately, repeating his name with adoration. Mayu observes her teammate's outburst with a flat, unimpressed expression. Mayu's composure finally cracks. A deep blush spreads across her face as she processes Ria's words. Love at first sight. She stammers in denial, insisting that Left is not her little brother. Nearby, Gladiolus laughs heartily, telling Left he might as well give up. Haiso sighs, surveying the chaotic scene. He notes the mounting misunderstandings, while Left, caught in the middle, looks completely overwhelmed, his eyes spinning. Deciding to regain control, Haiso claps his hand on the table and formally calls the meeting to order. With the meeting underway, though Ria still holds Left on her lap, Haiso begins to explain the details of their new mission. He reveals that it is a direct request from the country. The document on the table specifies a duration of 1 week and a substantial reward of 200 gold coins. He continues to lay out the details of the mission. The subjugation is equivalent to a rank A quest, as there have been sightings of a wyvern near the mines. His party members immediately begin to dissect the information. Ria asks about the wyvern's attributes and numbers, while Mayu questions the necessity of a week-long time frame. Haiso, with a confident smirk, notes the generous reward of 200 gold coins, a clear sign of the king's investment. Listening to their professional exchange, Left is struck with awe. He realizes this calm, analytical approach is the mark of top-tier adventurers, and they don't seem nervous at all. Noticing the boys' rapt attention, Haiso explains that this is their standard process for discussing the details of a request. He asks Left for his thoughts, and the boy, overwhelmed but enlightened, admits he learned a great deal. Haiso then offers to answer any further questions Left might have. As their discussion concludes, a glance at a nearby grandfather clock reveals how late the hour has grown. Ria points out that Left has a curfew and needs to be back by 1 p.m., suggesting they should probably leave soon. Before he can react, she suddenly pulls him into a tight embrace, startling him. Haiso, slightly exasperated, tells Ria to let the boy go, reminding her that Left has his own circumstances and she shouldn't make him uncomfortable. Undeterred, Left looks up at Ria and shyly asks if he can come visit them again. Her face lights up at his question. She enthusiastically agrees, shaking him with excitement as she asks if he means tomorrow. She insists he can come play with them anytime, though she admits the exact timing is uncertain. As they prepare to part ways, Gladiolus and Mayu also extend warm invitations for Left to return, promising he'll always be welcome. Mayu, however, quietly notes to herself that the farewell feels strangely final. With a bright, sincere smile, Left expresses his gratitude to Mayu and Gladiolus for their kindness. Meanwhile, Haiso, the leader of Fire Dragon Strike, lightly chided his teammates for making plans without him. He quickly relented, however, admitting with a sigh that it was fine. He then turned to Left with a broad smile, remarking that the meeting had been quite productive, largely thanks to the party's active participation for the first time. Haiso extended an open invitation for the boy to visit them occasionally. Overjoyed by their genuine welcome, Left eagerly accepted, honored by the offer. His time with the adventurers concluded, he returned to the Austria estate. Announcing his arrival, he was greeted warmly by the household staff. His brief foray into the adventurer's world was over. It was time to resume his studies as the son of a noble. His curriculum was extensive, covering reading and writing in the official language of the Nemophila Kingdom, general education, such as arithmetic, and specialized subjects like monster studies, flora, and fauna. In addition to his academic pursuits, his training also included swordsmanship. He felt the weight of all there was to learn. As evening fell, he sat down for dinner with his father and mother. When they asked about his day, he recounted all the events, deciding to hold nothing back. His parents listened intently, their expressions shifting to surprise. His mother leaned forward, confirming if he had truly been assisted by the leader of the renowned Fire Dragon Strike. His father expressed relief that Left was safe after being harassed by those men. His mother, however, couldn't contain her excitement, revealing herself to be a great fan of the adventuring party. Despite their words, Left could still detect a trace of worry in their faces. Their concern soon softened into warmth. His mother remarked that despite the eventful 3 hours, she was glad he seemed to have enjoyed himself. His father concurred, pleased that his son had made such reliable new acquaintances. As they spoke, they enveloped him in gentle, reassuring smiles. He basked in their affection, a look of pure contentment on his face. He returns to his room after dinner, walking down the quiet, ornate hallway of his family's estate. Inside, he settles at his desk, a sense of excitement building as he prepares for the long-awaited task, registering new plants in his encyclopedia. He opens the book, feeling it grow thicker with each new entry. This tangible growth gives him a sense that his own abilities and options are expanded. His attention is captured by a particularly beautiful specimen, the crystal flower. He marvels at its appearance and notes its staggering price of 1 gold and 5 silver coins, far more than the 8 silver coins for an intermediate medicinal herb. He eagerly anticipates registering this special plant next. The flower is renowned among adventurers as a popular choice for romantic confessions, as its crystalline structure continues to shine long after it has been picked. After registering all the plants he purchased, he begins to verify the magic power cost for materializing each one. He confirms that low-grade medicinal herbs, poisonous plants, and numbing grass all consume a mere 2 magic power, which falls within his expected range. He then moves on to the moonlight grass, venturing into uncharted territory. Knowing it's an ingredient for intermediate and higher-level potions and costs 4 times as much as common herbs, he calculates that its magic consumption should be between 8 and 14. His prediction proves accurate. The moonlight grass consumes exactly 10 magic power. Based on this, he extrapolates that a standard intermediate medicinal herb should require around 40 magic power to create. However, when he attempts to materialize an intermediate herb, he is stunned. The process drains a staggering 50 magic power, far more than he anticipated. This sudden realization fills him with dread as he considers the cost of the crystal flower, his most expensive purchase. His hand hovers over the encyclopedia, a wave of hesitation washing over him. A troubling thought stops him from proceeding. He stared into space, a worried expression on his face. With a maximum magic power of 124, he seriously questioned if he had enough to materialize the expensive crystal flower. He decided to set the matter aside for now. Though he had successfully registered the flower, he would try materializing it again later, after his magic recovered. His attention shifted to his next experiment, poisonous plants and their antidote. To test the encyclopedia's fidelity, he prepared 2 identical leaves of a poisonous plant. One was the genuine article, purchased from a store, while the other he had just materialized himself. He cautiously chewed a piece of the leaf and immediately recoiled, spitting it out. The bitterness was overwhelming. The poison's effects began to take hold. A wave of sluggishness washed over him as his health ticked down by 1 point every 5 minutes. He endured it for a moment longer before reaching for the antidote potion. After drinking the potion, relief spread through him. The effectiveness was remarkable. He concluded the test, having confirmed that the effects of the store-bought and materialized poisonous plants were exactly the same. He collapsed onto his bed, the experiment complete. Just as the guild had verified the healing effects of his medicinal herbs, he now knew the plant encyclopedia reproduced items perfectly. This meant it was safe to sell his creations. Still, he shuddered, recalling the unpleasantness of ingesting poison. With this confirmation, however, he could move forward. Lying there, he identified a new problem. This was a step forward, but a small one. He realized that even with a rare plant registered in his encyclopedia, there would be times he was powerless. His total magic power was dependent on his level, and he foresaw situations where his reserves simply wouldn't be enough. The conclusion was unavoidable. With a grunt of determination, he clenched his fist. The only way to overcome this limitation was by leveling up. He sat up, clutching his book. He had become an adventurer to defeat monsters and level up, a plan that would be manageable with a combat-oriented gift. But the plant encyclopedia was not suited for battle, making the path forward difficult for a child. As he pondered this, he recalled Haiso's friendly invitation to visit the guild. An idea began to form. 10 days after his decision, he arrived at the plains spreading outside the castle gates, a territory known for its frequent goblin appearances. He was accompanied by 2 senior adventurers. The red-haired woman, Ria, noticed his tension and told him to relax, while the other, Mayu, looked on. The area, she explained, was aptly named the Goblin Plains. Left could only manage a nervous agreement. Suddenly, Rhea held him back, telling him to stop. She pointed towards a spot in the distance, her expression shifting to one of focus. In the direction she indicated, a small group of green-skinned creatures milled about. Left stared, his eyes wide as he recognized them for the first time. They were goblins. Mayu confirmed his identification, explaining that just like adventurers, monsters also have ranks. Judging by their aura, she determined these were the lowest F rank. She then turned to Left, asking if he was scared by the sight of the three creatures. He looked down at the trio from their vantage point on the wall, and quietly admitted that he was a little. Rhea reassured him, telling him his big sisters were there to help. She explained that it was too dangerous for a beginner to face three at once, so she would take down two of them. His turn would come when only one remained. She instructed him to get ready. With a surge of resolve, Left agreed, gripping his short sword tightly. He offered his thanks, his mind racing with the knowledge that this would be his very first battle against a monster. Outside the castle walls, Left and a woman with long, dark red hair exchange greetings. She smiles warmly, introducing herself, and Left politely replies, saying it's nice to meet her. Sometime later, in an open field, the group's peaceful outing is interrupted. A small, sinewy creature with pointed ears, a goblin, suddenly appears before them, its claws digging into the earth. His eyes widen in shock. A bead of sweat trickles down Left's face as he processes the sudden danger. Before the goblin can react, something flashes past it with incredible speed, kicking up a bit of dust. The creature shrieks, startled, as Left and his companion stare, unable to comprehend what just happened. The monster, with its hideous face, pitch-black eyes, and sharp fangs, turns its attention to the children. Litina calmly tells Left that it's his turn. He agrees, admitting to himself that it's terrifying up close, but his expression hardens with resolve. He has made up his mind. He draws a short sword, understanding that his plant-based gift isn't suited for combat. To increase his magical power, he knows he must defeat monsters himself. He watches the goblin, noting its simple and repetitive attack patterns. Putting his daily training to the test, he parries a swing from the goblin's club. From the sidelines, Riatris and Litina offer words of encouragement. His blade grazes the goblin's chest, drawing blood. The small success confirms that his efforts are working. The creature lunges again, repeating the exact same movement as before. Left grits his teeth, acknowledging that he might be losing in raw strength, but he is confident that he is the smarter of the two. As the goblin attacks, he sidesteps and thrusts his sword forward, striking the creature in the face. The goblin drops its club and stumbles back, clutching its eye in pain. Left watches, triumphant, knowing he has successfully blinded it. He steels himself, his only thought to take the goblin's head. With a final, desperate battle cry, he lunges forward, dagger first, as blood splatters from the impact. His strike finds its mark. The goblin collapses, lifeless, onto the grassy field, its body still. With the creature dispatched, Left pants heavily, the intensity of the fight finally registering. He looks down to see that the goblin's body has vanished, leaving behind a single, dark, faceted gem. He picks it up, recognizing it as a magic stone, the core of a monster, used as material for enhancing equipment. His moment of quiet examination is broken as Riatris and Mayu rush to his side. Riatris calls out his name, anxiously asking if he's hurt, while Mayu echoes the sentiment, asking if he's okay. Left turns to face them, acknowledging their arrival. He finds himself suddenly surrounded by Riatris' intensely worried face, her concern manifesting as multiple, shimmering images around him. Overwhelmed, he manages to confirm that he is somehow fine. He can only laugh sheepishly at her overprotective nature. His amusement is cut short when Riatris gasps, having spotted an injury on his hand. He dismisses the injury, explaining that it's nothing and that he likely just used too much force with the dagger. Unconvinced, Mayu steps forward, her hands glowing with a soft light as she casts a spell, announcing it as perfect heal. The light fades, leaving his hand completely healed. Relieved, he thanks Mayu, once again remarking on how overprotective they are. Mayu simply states that his well-being is a relief. With Left fully recovered, Riatris cheerfully suggests they find the next goblin. Holding her hand, Left agrees with a bright smile, ready for the next challenge. Sometime later, having decided to consult with his new acquaintances, Left arrives at a large, timber-framed building. He feels that with their help, he can fight with peace of mind. He knocks on a door, and a cautious voice from within, which he recognizes as Helios, asks who is there. Left realizes with a start that he probably should have announced his visit. He was met not by Helio, but by an overwhelming embrace. A sweet scent tickled his nose as Riatris' voice boomed, calling his name with unrestrained joy. The hug belonged to Riatris, who declared how much she had missed him. Even as Mayu tried to intervene, Left recognized the embrace. It had just the right strength, comforting without causing pain. He knew it was Riatris without even looking, but a sense of alarm rose within him. This level of comfort was dangerous. If he gave in, he feared he would become utterly useless. Despite his internal reservations, he couldn't help but blush, admitting to Riatris that he had missed her too. Just then, Helio's voice cut in, welcoming Left. Standing beside him was Hyso, whose expression was far more serious. He informed Left that there was something he needed to discuss. Left arrives at the headquarters of Fire Dragon Strike, aware that the members were gathering. He wonders if it was rude to come unannounced. Haiso greets him warmly, dismissing his apology and explaining that the other two members had just stepped out. Haiso expresses his sheer delight at Left's visit. His joy is interrupted as Reincarnated embraces Left from behind, exclaiming that she's glad she woke up early. Haiso notes with surprise that Reincarnated only gets this serious when it concerns Left. Just then, Mayu appears at the door, announcing her presence with a simple greeting. Haiso seems relieved, glad for her help. She enters the room, spotting Left with Reincarnated, and asks if he came to play. Left greets Mayu and clarifies that he actually has something to discuss. With a burst of enthusiasm, Mayu declares that her big sis will listen. Haiso interjects, telling Mayu to leave it to him and that they will proceed after Gio arrives. The name puzzles Left for a moment before he realizes it must be Gladiolus. He reflects that Helio also uses nicknames for him, suggesting a close bond within the group. The thought strengthens his desire to learn more about Fire Dragon Strike. As he considers this, he becomes aware of Reincarnated's intense, close-range affection. He finds her mysterious, but feels she treats him with genuine care. Though the proximity is unusual, he is not uncomfortable. In fact, he recognizes the feeling as something familiar. The feeling reminds him of Latina's happy smile from their childhood. Reincarnated notices his distraction and asks what's wrong. He dismisses it, recalling Mayu's comment that Reincarnated had only watched him from afar until now. He concludes that she must truly like him and steels his resolve to become a respectable person worthy of such regard. Just then, the final member arrives. Gladiolus enters, apologizing for being late and mentioning he heard Left had something to discuss. Haiso confirms this, and Gladiolus, while admitting he's not good with difficult talks, eagerly offers to listen. With everyone assembled, Haiso prompts Left to begin. With everyone's attention on him, Left hesitates. He internally acknowledges that wanting to level up is an unnatural ambition for a 10-year-old. He questions if it's truly wise to reveal his unique gift, the plant encyclopedia, to these people. Ultimately, his desire to know more about the famous Fire Dragon Strike and to gain their help outweighs his caution. He looks at the faces around him, sensing their kindness and charm despite having just met them. He feels drawn to them and decides there is no need to hesitate. Announcing that he will first explain his gift's ability, he summons his grimoire, believing that if he continues to hide things, nothing will ever change. After he finishes his explanation, Reincarnated looks at him with admiration, calling his ambition amazing. Gladiolus agrees, noting that it's a rare gift and that Left will surely become strong, even with his currently limited magic power. Haiso concurs that it's an amazing ability, while Mayu simply stares, a look of shock on her face. Haiso confirms with Left that the medicinal herbs the guild recently purchased were all duplicates created from his gift. Left affirms this, explaining that he registered plants he wanted that weren't already in his plant encyclopedia, creating new pages for them. The realization dawns on Haiso that if Left's ability levels up, he could mass-produce these valuable plants at any time. As he processes this, Mayu speaks up, apologizing and clarifying that she never meant to deceive him. She feels a sense of responsibility, as it was Helio who introduced them. She gives her word that Left will not use his gift in a way that causes problems. Left listens, thinking to himself how thoroughly she has considered the situation for someone so young. Haiso acknowledges her desire to investigate the gift, understanding her reason. He rubs the back of his head, agreeing with Mayu's analysis and admitting he doesn't believe Left is the type to cause trouble. Mayu adds that they simply need to be careful things don't get out of control. Suddenly, Ria steps forward, startling Left as she declares herself his big sister and promises to assist him in any way she can. Left gratefully accepts her offer. Later, Haiso relaxes on a sofa, sighing. He wonders if he made a mistake by introducing such a potentially disruptive person to the old woman at the general store, considering Left's ability could put many shops out of business. He dismisses the thought with a weary finality, deciding it's fine as long as they are free. Arriving at Left's home, Gladiolus is stunned by the sheer size of the mansion, admitting he feels intimidated. Haiso remarks that he had assumed Left was merely a polite boy with high-quality belongings, but now understands he is actually the son of a noble. Left simply smiles, pleased to have them visit. Inside, they are greeted by Left parents. His father, Count Austria, welcomes them warmly and invites them to make themselves comfortable. He suggests that for their discussion, they should set aside formalities and speak as equals. Despite the Count's offer, Gladiolus becomes flustered, stammering, and unable to speak properly. Haiso sharply jabs him in the side, reminding him to at least add the honorific San to Left's name and use polite language. Left's mother smiles kindly, reassuring them to be at ease. Haiso breathes a sigh of relief, confessing that he was worried about having to maintain proper etiquette, which he has always been bad at. He asks if it is truly all right for them to speak casually. With a gentle expression, Left's mother confirms that it is. With the pleasantries concluded, Count Austria turns his attention directly to Haiso. His expression becomes serious as he formally begins their meeting, asking what business brought him to their home that day. A man's voice, firm and resolute, cuts through the room. He declares that since he is dealing with nobles, he will not hold back during their negotiations. The speaker, Haiso, leans back casually, explaining that the reason for his visit is to discuss business. His proposal shocks Left's mother. He wants to formally request, through the guild, that his party, Fire Dragon Strike, become Left's permanent bodyguards. Left's father, surprised, questions if this arrangement is for more than just the day. In the distance, Left, accompanied by Rhea and Miyu, heads off to face his next goblin. As the discussion continues, Left's mother voices her concern, reminding them that her son is only 10. His father presses further, asking why they are rushing the boy's growth when his gift isn't even combat-oriented. Simultaneously, a memory or vision shows Left deftly parrying a goblin's club and striking it down with his dagger. He, however, internally questions the situation, wondering if this intense training isn't too dangerous for him. Following the successful hunt, Rhea congratulates him on acquiring another magic stone. He confirms to Miyu that he did get a goblin request form from the guild, as there was a perfect quest available. Back in the drawing room, Heiso addresses the parents' concerns. He explains that unique gifts develop more slowly, so it's wise to start training now for the academy. He then makes a promise. A member of Fire Dragon Strike will always accompany Left outside of town to ensure he never encounters true danger. Left's mother remains pensive, wondering aloud why this powerful group of adventurers is being so kind to her son. Her unspoken question is met with the party's true feelings. Rhea gushes that Left is an angel, while Miyu states matter-of-factly that he is her little brother. Heiso simply looks on, unimpressed by their display. He then offers a more structured explanation. He tells the parents there are several reasons he cares for Left: his positive attitude towards the plant encyclopedia, the rarity of a child thinking so deeply about their gift's future, and the simple fact that Miyu and Ryatres have grown fond of him. He also gestures towards Left's new gloves, hinting at another, unstated reason. As the conversation continues, Left now wears a pair of gloves. Miyu observes that they fit him perfectly, and Left confirms he borrowed them from her. Nearby, Rhea watches with a blush, overcome with jealousy. Heiso watches the interaction, reflecting internally. He notes how rare it is for the women in his party, who are typically difficult to handle, to warm up to someone so quickly. While the usefulness of the plant encyclopedia is one thing, he feels a greater potential within the boy and resolves to be a rational guide for him. His thoughts are interrupted as Rhea decides she will buy her own gloves and enthusiastically asks Left to help her choose. Observing this cheerful exchange between the adventurers and their son, Count Austria and his wife share a warm, pleased smile. His wife's expression, however, shifts to one of contemplation. She murmurs aloud, wondering if this reminds her of a similar situation from the past. Sensing her line of thought and deciding to elaborate on his proposal, Heiso speaks up to address them directly. He gestures to himself, a serious look on his face, while his companion seated beside him smirks knowingly. Heiso begins to explain. A unique gift holder, he concludes. The statement lands with force, causing both the Count and his wife to gasp in surprise. He continues, explaining that while unique gifts are generally powerful, they can be late to bloom or seem useless at first, requiring significant time to develop. He reveals that his own gift was so difficult to control that he was ridiculed by the villagers and labeled as useless, unable to do anything in front of others. His fortune changed, he says, when he was saved by the man beside him, Gio. With a wide grin, Gio interjects, teasing that Heiso was a complete crybaby back then. This revelation about her idol's past proves too much for Selvia Austria. She struggles to maintain her composure, her face flushing as she internally squeals with delight. Embarrassed, Heiso shoves Gio, telling him to stop revealing unnecessary things. He continues his explanation, revealing that he saw Left enter the guild and felt a sense of worry, as the boy's small figure overlapped with memories of his own past. He recalls hearing someone in town bad-mouthing the plant encyclopedia gift, which further drew his attention. He then witnessed Left stand up to his adult harassers with dignity, and in that moment, the boy's small back seemed immense. It was then that Heiso decided he wanted to see this child's future unfold. His conviction moves Count Austria, who formally accepts the offer. He requests that Heiso's party guide and protect Left, promising compensation for their bodyguard services. The two men shake hands to seal the agreement, with Heiso expressing his gratitude as Left's parents look on with approval. Sometime later, out in a field, Left begins his training. With a determined shout, he swings a small sword, while Rhea and Miyu observe from short distance. As he practices, he suddenly freezes, a look of surprise on his face. A strange sensation washes over him as he feels a surge of power welling up from within. The realization dawns on him. His level has increased. He eagerly checks his status, which confirms he has reached level 2, a tangible sign of his newfound progress. As Ryatres and Heiso offer their congratulations, with Ryatres giving him an enthusiastic hug, Left wonders to himself if his gift's level has also increased. Miyu examines his status plate, noticing a significant change. Where there was no numerical notation before, it now clearly reads Plant Encyclopedia LV.I, confirming that his gift has indeed reached a new level. Ryatres explains that her own magic void ability also lacked a level notation at first, telling Left that this is proof his gift is rare. Heiso listens intently, remarking that it's the same as Ryatres' magic. Prompted by Heiso's question about new abilities, Left decides to check. He successfully materializes a small plant in his hand, revealing that he can now store these materialized plants. He immediately recognizes the utility of this new storage function. He recalls how heavy it was to carry 55 bundles of low-grade medicinal herbs. Realizing this ability will be incredibly helpful. The discussion continues as Hiso asks about his status growth. Reincarnated inquires if he needs to touch items with his right hand to store them, similar to materialization. Left ponders this, remembering Helio's warning that unique gifts level up slowly, and wonders if the conditions will change as he grows stronger. Reincarnated looks at his status again and gasps in amazement. His HP has increased by 15, but more astonishingly, his magic power has surged by 115, reaching a total of 239. She declares the increase extraordinary, recognizing it as something truly significant. Contemplating his new stats, Left concludes that he is not suited for a close-quarters fighting style and must devise a different strategy. Hiso reassures him not to rush, offering to think it through with him. They remained with him until nightfall, during which time he managed to reach level 3. Meanwhile, Left's father, Count Austria, discusses the arrangement. He explains that by formally requesting through the guild that the party guard his son, it will help raise their rank, framing it as a mutually beneficial situation. His mother, Selvia, adds her own gentle encouragement, telling Left to learn a great deal from them, but also reminding him to keep up with his regular studies. She and her husband listen as their son, Left, beams with gratitude, thanking them profusely. With his new training arrangement, the only restriction placed upon him is that he must dine with his parents each evening. Later, sitting cross-legged on his bed, he contemplates his next steps. He reflects on the vast difference between his plant encyclopedia and combat-oriented gifts. If he possessed something like swordsmanship, he muses, he could likely defeat 3 foes in an instant. This societal structure dictates the futures of the young. Noble children are expected to join the Royal Knight Order or Magician Corps, training at the academy while simultaneously studying governance to inherit the family business. For commoners, this path is a narrow and fiercely competitive one. Most become foot soldiers, merchants, or adventurers seeking freedom and fortune. Though it is rare for a third son to inherit, the fundamental career expectations remain the same. Regardless of the chosen path, one truth is universal. To raise one's basic abilities, fighting monsters is essential. He flips through the pages of his encyclopedia, searching for solutions. His search proves fruitless. He realizes that among the plants currently documented in his encyclopedia, none can be used as a weapon. His desire is to fight effectively using his own unique gift, but he currently lacks the means. His father offers him a new resource, a book from a previous generation. The Count explains that it contains detailed information about the geography and plants of the Nemophila kingdom, causing Left to look on in awe. He immediately begins to study the tome. Though he finds many of the words difficult, he believes he can manage by relying on the illustrations. His father advises him to use it carefully, and Left agrees with determination. As he pores over the ancient text, a sudden realization strikes him. He points to an entry in the old book, a sudden realization striking him. The plant depicted within could be incredibly useful. Presenting his findings to the adventurer party, he names the 2 plants he discovered, Karamazuru and Explosion Grass. Hiso, the party leader, looks on with intrigue. Hiso strokes his chin, contemplating the possibilities. He concedes that such plants could indeed have powerful applications in combat. Ria clasps her hands together, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The idea of using plants materialized by Left's unique gift as weapons strikes her as a brilliant and novel concept. Hiso then asks Left if he knows where the plants grow naturally. Knowing that Mayu is the expert on such matters, he defers the question to her. Mayu acknowledges this and agrees to retrieve a map. Unfurling the map, she points to a specific location. Both plants, she explains, can be found near the entrance to the monster forest, just south of the Goblin Plains. She reassures Left that for about a kilometer into the woods, the monsters are no stronger than the goblins he has already faced. Despite her words, Left trembles, recalling a frightening song about the infamous forest. The other party members apologize to Left, explaining that everyone except Mayu has unavoidable business to attend to and cannot accompany him. In response, Mayu steps forward with a determined look, announcing that she will take full responsibility and act as his big sister for the expedition. Ria looks on, utterly stunned by the declaration. Ria asks if he wants to go today, and upon his agreement, she sweeps him into a crushing hug. As she squeezes him, she cries out in pain as her own body seems to contort under the strain. Mayu quickly intervenes, pulling on Ria's cheek and scolding her not to deform their important client. He watches as Mayu declares her deformation recovered, asking him to take care of her. She then smiles warmly, stating that for today, he is her little brother and hers alone. As she says this, Reincarnated clings to him, wailing his name in despair. Mayu tries to drag the crying woman away, telling her it's time to go. Flustered by the scene, Left formally agrees, asking Mayu to please take care of him. Reincarnated is dragged away, screaming Left's name. He scrambles on the floor, his small hand desperately reaching for hers, but she is pulled from his grasp as Mayu watches from behind. A door slams shut, separating them. Left stares at the closed door in silence. From the other side, Helio's voice is heard telling Mayu that he's counting on her to lock up. Mayu then turns to the boy, calmly telling him to leave the monster forest escort to his big sister. Left looks up at her, startled and questioning the title. The monster forest is a vast, foreboding woodland located on the border between the Nemophila Kingdom and the Griusa Empire. He asks if there's a song about the monster forest, and Mayu confirms there is. It is known as an impassable zone where many dangerous monsters dwell, a natural barrier that has long prevented war from breaking out between the two neighboring countries. Left smiles, explaining that he is aware of its reputation. He mentions a very famous children's picture book and even a play about it. He adds that parents even sing the song when scolding their children, ensuring everyone knows the forest is a dangerous area. He then asks Mayu if her hometown had anything similar. She confirms she knew the picture book existed because it was on a bookshelf, but she was never interested enough to read it. As they walk, she announces, "We're here." They stand at the entrance to a dense wood. Mayu informs him that they will start by looking for a plant called Karamazuru. His enthusiasm immediately returns, and he eagerly agrees, asking her to lead the way. Mayu offers a small, confident smile in return. As they venture forward, she quizzes him on his knowledge of Karamazuru. Left recalls what he knows, stating that it's a vine that wraps around things it touches and grows in clusters where there are many trees. She listens, then adds a critical detail. Karamazuru is nocturnal. The information surprises Left, reminding him of the moonflower from his previous life. Mayu elaborates that the plant evolved to bloom at night because its pollinators are all nocturnal insects, ensuring its pollen is carried. She continued her explanation, recounting a story about the Karamazuru. The vine is said to wrap around animals, suffocating them before absorbing their nutrients. However, there's a crucial detail. Once the plant wraps around something it cannot feed on, like a stone, it is unable to detach itself. Left's eyes widened in amazement at this information. Mayu added a final warning, noting that depending on the environment, the plant might simply wither away, making their search even more challenging. He found her stories fascinating. Realizing that an element of luck was involved in their quest, he couldn't help but smile warmly. Mayu returned his smile, pleased by his reaction. As they walked deeper into the woods, the path ahead split into two. Left wondered aloud if the path had been made by adventurers. Consulting a map, Mayu confirmed it was. She explained that the wider path led to prime monster hunting grounds, but the Karamazuru they sought grew in clusters down the much narrower, less traveled route. He looked toward the dark, narrow path with a hint of apprehension. Sensing his hesitation, Mayu gently placed a reassuring hand on his head. She leaned in, telling him it was okay because she was with him. His confidence restored, Left agreed. They proceeded down the dimming path until they finally found what they were looking for, thickets of Karamazuru vines. Observing the dense entanglement, Mayu remarked that it was like a natural trap. Small animals, or even goblins, would be unable to escape its grasp. Left agreed, noting that no one would willingly come to such a place. His eyes then caught a specific vine that had tangled with itself. A realization struck him, and he pointed it out, exclaiming that only a fool would touch such a thing. Applying his new understanding, he reached for a different vine, one that was hanging freely. He asked Mayu for confirmation that this one was safe, and she affirmed it. With his encyclopedia tucked under one arm, he began to carefully harvest the plant. As he successfully harvests the vine, Mayu claps her hands together in approval. She congratulates him, confirming that she has registered the new plant in his encyclopedia. She then shifts their focus to the next target, explosion grass. Mayu asks if he researched its characteristics, and Left confirms, recalling that its sacs burst when stimulated, spreading poison to use nearby creatures as nutrients. Mayu agrees, noting that unlike Karamazuru, explosion grass is ruthlessly efficient at capturing prey. She elaborates that any minor stimulation, rain, wind, or even small stones, is enough to trigger the poison sacs. The resulting toxin spreads over a wide area, felling animals and monsters who simply inhale it. He grows worried, asking if the poison is lethal and whether he can handle it. Mayu reassures him that deaths are rare. Instead, she explains, the victim's entire body becomes paralyzed, rendering them unable to move for dozens of days, a fact that startles Left. He processes the grim reality. In severe cases, entire groups can be caught, paralyzed, and weakened. Eventually, the plant's roots and fungi spread to the helpless prey, consuming them for nutrients. Almost everything within range is fated to be consumed. Mayu gazes into the forest, a thoughtful expression on her face. She murmurs that the quiet explosion grass is a terrifying presence, one that has paradoxically enriched the monster forest. He turns to her, impressed, remarking that she seems to know everything. Mayu smiles gently and replies that it's simply because she is his big sister. Her simple declaration strikes him with awe. He flushes, realizing with sudden clarity that big sisters are truly amazing. Mayu announces that the grass is close by, and they should head over. Before following, Left pauses, kneeling to check the wind. He confirms the upwind direction, ensuring a safe approach to collect the volatile plant. Having determined their path, they arrive at a small clearing. Before them lies a large, tranquil patch of explosion grass, its delicate white flowers belying the danger they pose. He looks upon the field with trepidation, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. He quietly asks if this is the explosion grass cluster, noting the unsettling silence that hangs in the air. Mayu gives a quiet hum of confirmation, her gaze fixed on a grim sight below. Scattered among the flowers are the still bodies of several goblins, victims of the plant's poison. She murmurs that it's a scene from hell. She explains that the group of goblins was hit by the poison. Though they are currently upwind, she warns him to be careful not to inhale any of it. Covering his mouth with his hand, he agrees. As a precaution, she steps toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder to halt his advance. Left, stay still, she commands gently. He looks up at her, surprised by her sudden closeness. She then leans in, cupping his cheek with her hand as she softly incants Arrow Guard. A shimmering aura of protective magic immediately envelopes him. As the spell takes hold, she explains that this magic makes him less susceptible to status ailments, which should make things a bit safer. He feels a distinct warmth spreading from her touch. He pulls back slightly, looking at his hands as the last of the magical glow fades, and thanks her sincerely. Mayu gives a small, satisfied nod in response. Her focus returns to the dangerous field. She reminds him that the spell's effect lasts only about 30 minutes, and warns him not to be overconfident. He must still avoid areas where he might inhale the terrifying poison. He understands, but his resolve only strengthens. Clutching his plant encyclopedia, he declares that this very danger is precisely why he wants to register the plant for his abilities' growth. Accepting his determination, Mayu instructs him to begin by observing the explosion grass carefully. With a focused expression, he gives a firm, "Why yes." Deep in the forest, Left holds his plant encyclopedia, contemplating his situation. He realizes he must act with care, acknowledging that without Mayu's guidance, he would have been lost long ago. His attention fixes on a specific flower, noting the subtle difference in its poison sac. Some are swollen, while others are not. He points to one of the flowers, explaining to Mayu that the one with the unswollen sac has lost its poison content. He asks for a confirmation that it is now safe. His face lights up with a bright smile as he eagerly affirms his choice. Mayu brings a finger to her lips, a small smile on her face as she praises him, confirming his assessment was correct. Standing together in a sun-dappled clearing, Mayu congratulates him on achieving their goal. She then urges that they shouldn't linger and should depart. He agrees enthusiastically, then asks if they can test out the encyclopedia's functions on their way back. Mayu turns to him, understanding his intent, and asks if he wants to register some plants. He gestures toward a massive tree, asking about the filto tree. Mayu explains that it's what is strong and easy to work with, making it ideal for practice swords and shields. Lev considers this, realizing it could be useful for defense. He approaches the enormous trunk, a look of concentration on his face as he wonders if his encyclopedia can register such a large plant. He reaches out and places his palm flat against the bark. A blinding flash of light erupts from the point of contact. Lev cries out in surprise, shielding his eyes from the intense brightness, while Mayu squints against the sudden glare. As the light subsides, a profound silence falls over the clearing. The massive filto tree has vanished completely, leaving only a shallow impression in the earth where it once stood. Beams of sunlight now pour into the newly opened space. He looks down at his book, which now emits a soft glow, and understands. The tree disappeared because it was successfully registered in the plant encyclopedia. Beside him, Mayu simply murmurs, "Beautiful." He stood in the clearing, gazing up at the sky, amazed by the power he had just wielded. Wondering how much time had passed, he turned to Mayu, apologizing for making her companions, the plants, vanish. He resolved to use this power with greater care from now on. In response, Mayu simply offered a quiet word of encouragement, telling him he could do it. Lev looked slightly taken aback by her simple faith in him. He then understood. His gift, the plant encyclopedia, was being aided by the life force of plants from all over the world, drawing power from them. As they walked on, their progress was halted. On a small rise ahead of them stood a lone goblin, clutching a crude club. Lev noted that it was rare to see one acting alone, and Mayu agreed, suggesting it was likely a straggler. He then asked her what they should do. Deciding to test his new abilities, Lev declared he would try using a plant called Karamazuru. Opening his encyclopedia, a leafy vine materialized in his gloved hand. He was pleased to discover he could summon plants, even without direct skin contact, a fact that impressed Mayu. His relief was immense. He had been worried the vine might wrap around him like an anaconda. Mayu, meanwhile, playfully called him a dummy, having imagined him getting completely tangled up. Preparing for the fight, he dismissed the encyclopedia. He held his short sword in his left hand and the summoned plant in his right, wondering if he could fight effectively in this configuration. He tightened his grip on the sword. While not impossible to wield with his non-dominant hand, it felt awkward and left him feeling uneasy. He quickly reevaluated. It was better to keep the sword ready. He decided to switch the Karamazuru to his left hand, reasoning that even if he messed up and it tangled around him, Mayu was there to help. With the sword in his dominant right hand and the vine in his left, he faced the goblin, ready for battle. He steels himself and lunges forward, thrusting the summoned Karamazuru plant toward the goblin. With a shout, he throws the vine. It sails through the air and expertly wraps around the goblin's legs, tripping the creature and binding it completely. The creature immobilized, he stands over it with his sword raised, declaring that he won't let it get up before bringing the blade down. From a short distance, a young woman with short, light hair watches the final blow land. After the goblin's body vanishes, he notices the Karamazuru plant remains. Realizing the potential for it to disrupt the local ecosystem if it takes root, he uses his storage ability to safely retrieve it. He reflects on the fight, acknowledging that his throwing ability is not reliable. He understands that he cannot expect to succeed every time and that a failed attempt could easily put him at a disadvantage. This line of thought leads him to another conclusion. Keeping his right hand constantly occupied with plants is a significant risk, a danger he must be especially mindful of when he is alone. His contemplation is interrupted by the young woman who is observing him. She approaches and commends his good work, telling him he was very skilled in using his gift. He kneels and offers a simple thank you. He shakes his head, humbly disagreeing with her praise. He insists that he still has a long way to go, having found many issues with his performance that he needs to work on. His humble self-assessment earns him a gentle pat on the head. The woman thinks to herself that he analyzes things thoroughly, just as she expected. She reflects that children like him grow quickly, and she resolves that she cannot afford to fall behind either. Her expression shifts to a playful one as she proposes their next test, using the explosion grass. Left looks up in surprise as she points towards a nearby castle wall, where two more goblins have appeared, calling them perfect targets. He grins with determination, sword held ready, and declares that he will take on one of the goblins. Mayu watches him, giving her assent. In a flash, before he can even take a step, a tremendous force obliterates one of the goblins from a distance, leaving the other stunned. Mayu calmly states that it is now his turn and encourages him to do his best. Startled, Left can only manage a hesitant yes. His surprise gives way to sheer astonishment. Looking at his own hand, he is struck by the immense, overwhelming difference in their levels of power, barely able to process the speed and force of her attack. Under the watchful eye of Mira, a first-class adventurer, Left feels the weight of expectation. She entrusts the surveillance of their surroundings to him, and he is determined to live up to the task. Focusing his will, he successfully materializes a plant from his encyclopedia, explosion grass, perfectly formed. Having prepared his unusual weapon, he takes a moment to assess the battlefield, noting with satisfaction that the wind is blowing in a favorable direction. He steps forward, sword drawn, intending to lure in as many foes as possible. As a lone goblin charges him, Left readies the plant and, with a sharp motion, throws the explosion grass directly at the creature. The plant detonates on impact, erupting in a violent blast that engulfs the goblin. Left instinctively ducks, bracing himself against the concussive force. From a safe distance, Mira casts Arrow Guard, a spell that swiftly dissipates the poisonous smoke billowing from the explosion. Left looks on, stunned, muttering his surprise at how violently the plant had burst. His eyes are wide with shock as he covers his mouth, the sheer destructive power he just wielded sinking in. Mira calls out, confirming the plant's effectiveness and ordering Left to finish off the incapacitated goblin. The creature twitches on the ground. Left agrees, but a chilling realization dawns on him. If the plant had hit the wrong spot, he could have easily been caught in his own devastating attack. He approaches the fallen creature, his small silhouette stark against the ravaged ground. The thought of how terrifying his ability could be if used incorrectly sends a shiver down his spine. Before he can deliver the final blow, the goblin's body dissolves into shimmering particles of light, leaving behind a single, dark stone. He kneels and touches the stone. It vanishes into his hand as the word store manifests before him. Looking around, he is relieved to see that some of the explosion grass he threw survived the blast. He examines the now limp Karamazuru plant in his hand and asks Mira if they can use stored plants more than once. She confirms his suspicion, explaining that once materialized, a plant like the Karamazuru loses its power to bind things. This prompts Mira to question why he bothers collecting them if they can't be used for combat again. Left explains that leaving them behind could be troublesome, as they might take root, a particular concern for the dangerous explosion grass. He adds that medicinal herbs, however, could be repurposed for potions. Looking down at his encyclopedia with a thoughtful expression, he quietly reflects that the plants themselves might not appreciate being materialized solely for his own convenience. He concludes internally that storing them is not just a practical measure to prevent them from withering, but also a way for him to honor the power they lend him, bringing him some peace of mind. With a gentle smile, he voices his hope that this is true. Mira watches him, remarking that while she can only imagine, she believes that if she were a plant, she would be happy with his feelings towards her. Her attention then shifts to their recent experiment. She asks how it went with the explosion grass, noting that there are still many challenges. Left, holding a monster stone, confirms this, admitting that the wide range of the poison powder creates a risk of him getting caught in it himself. He elaborates that since he specializes in close-range attacks, the explosion grass is far more difficult for him to handle safely compared to the Karamazuru. Mira listens, taking in his assessment. After a moment of thought, she looks at him intently and says his name, pointing out a critical flaw in his thinking. He always considers fighting as something he must do alone. Her observation catches him completely off guard, and he can only look back at her in confusion. Before he can respond, Helio's cheerful voice cuts in, startling him. Helio asks if they have collected enough goblin magic stones for their quest. Mira turns towards the distant guild hall and suggests they go exchange them for the reward, prompting an enthusiastic agreement from Helio. At the Adventurers Guild, a receptionist confirms Left's submission of 10 goblin magic stones. She congratulates him on completing his very first request and presents him with his reward. She explains that points have been added to his adventure registration card, noting that his rank will increase as he accumulates more. Clutching the card, Left beams with excitement, internally celebrating his first-ever subjugation reward. His quiet celebration is observed by the trio of adventurers from before. They grudgingly acknowledge that he is now a real adventurer and identify his companion as Mira from the party Fire Dragon Strike, realizing the rumors about his powerful escort were true. Just as they speak, Myra's gaze locks onto them, and they quickly decide to make themselves scarce. She turns her attention back to Left, wishing him luck on his next request. He eagerly agrees, adding that he also needs to buy a few things. Overhearing their conversation, the receptionist chimes in, reminding him that they also have delivery requests for medicinal herbs available. The receptionist elaborates that the pharmacy which received his previous herbs gave very positive feedback, praising them for being uniform in size, free of dirt, and easy to handle. The comment makes Left realize he hadn't considered how unnaturally perfect his magically created plants were. He politely declines for now, stating a preference for monster subjugation quests, and the receptionist tells him to let her know if he changes his mind. As they walk outside, Mira remarks that she hadn't thought about how plants produced by his encyclopedia would be so uniform. While acknowledging the constant demand for medicinal herbs, she agrees that it might be better for him to refrain from large-scale deliveries to the guild. Her reasoning is sharp and protective. As the guild master's right hand, she knows that if Left's unique ability becomes too noticeable, he could be subjected to unwanted scrutiny. The implication hits Left with force. His eyes widen as he understands the potential danger, and he quickly insists that he doesn't want to cause any trouble. Back at the estate gates, Mira prepares to leave. Kyra thanks her for her work, but Left expresses concern about her returning to town alone. The head maid reassures him, explaining that Mira is a formidable person who can defeat monsters in an instant, much to Left's surprise. She adds that Mira is only 14 years old, yet already an active adventurer on the front lines. Left is taken aback, realizing what an amazing person she must be. He silently concludes that, given her age and profession, she probably never attended the academy. He recalls a time when they spoke of the Monster Force picture book. Myra's response had been surprisingly blunt. She stated she wasn't interested and therefore hadn't read it. The curtness of her reply struck him as unusual, and he ponders its meaning. The thought crystallizes in his mind as he stares into the distance. Perhaps Mira never wanted to become a big sister figure, but was forced into the role out of necessity. Lying in bed after a long day, Left reflects on his progress. His level has gone up again. His stamina is now 58, and his magic power has reached a staggering 469. He marvels at the ridiculous growth of his magic stat, considering that he should probably ask Helio and the others about it. With a sigh of relief, he settles into his pillow, thinking of all that had happened. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted as he sits bolt upright. He remembers the filth tree. A strange sensation comes back to him, the feeling that he had absorbed the forest's power when he registered the tree. This leads him to wonder what would happen if he manifested the herbs, which had all appeared in a uniform size. He quickly dismisses the idea of mass manifesting an entire filth tree, realizing it's far too large, though a part of him desperately wants to try. His thoughts then drift to Miyu, who always fights assuming she'll be alone. A wave of frustration washes over him. There are so many people who need herbs, yet he must keep his gift a secret. The word alone echoes in his mind. He realizes it's for the same reason that he must hide his gift. Despite these heavy considerations, a small smile touches his lips. He closes his eyes, concluding that, still, the day was fun. A few days later, Left is dressed in his formal attire when a maid informs him that members of the adventurer party Fire Dragon Strike have arrived. He is taken aback, stating that he had nothing scheduled for the day, but the maid insists that hospitality be prepared quickly. The head maid, Kyra, approaches to clarify the situation. She explains that his parents are away, and the visitors claim it is just a greeting, so the front entrance should suffice. She then asks what he would like them to do. Left can only repeat the word, confused. A greeting? At that moment, two familiar figures appear at the entrance. Helio waves with a wide grin, calling out to him. Beside him, Gladiolus stands clad in heavy armor, a confident smirk on his face. Left stares back, his eyes wide with surprise as Kyra stands beside him. He recognizes them immediately, exclaiming their names. His first question, born of shock, is about their unusual outfits. He listened as Miyu explained that her party had received an emergency request and would likely be gone for about a week. Surprised by the long duration, Left asked if she was also preparing for the journey, which Helio confirmed. The boy then turned his attention to another matter, asking about the whereabouts of Ms. Lyatris. As he asked, a strange shuffling sound echoed from down the hall. A nearby maid looked on in horror, identifying a low, crawling voice that was heading straight for Lord Left. Left, however, recognized this pattern of behavior instantly. A deep blush spread across his face as he threw his arms open wide, eagerly declaring that his face was ready to be smothered and beckoning for Ms. Lyatris to come ahead. He waited with trembling anticipation, only to be met with a confused "huh" from the approaching figure. The unexpected response momentarily broke his excited posture, but his eager expression quickly returned. Suddenly, the form of Lyatris seemed to dissolve into a puddle on the floor, causing Left to cry out her name in alarm. From within the liquid mass, a voice recognized his, and Left frantically urged her to hang on, telling her he was right there. The sound of his voice was all it took. The puddle reformed as Liatrice launched herself at him, wrapping him in a desperate embrace. She cried out for her Leffy, overjoyed to have found the real one, and left, caught in her powerful grip, assured her it was him. Watching the dramatic reunion, Helio commented on her abnormal attachment. Gladiolus let out an awkward laugh, while Mayu coolly observed that Liatrice truly did not want to be separated from Left. Once Liatrice had calmed slightly, still clinging to him, Left discussed the mission with Hiso. He remarked that a week-long trip was unusual, especially since even a wyvern subjugation had only taken 2 days. Hiso confirmed this, explaining it was why they had come to inform him personally. Hiso's expression grew serious. He elaborated that their party had been specifically requested for this job, a fact which strongly suggested that a particularly powerful monster was expected to appear. This news sent Liatrice into a spiral of despair. She shrieked that 7 days, 168 hours, was far too long to be away from her Leffy, her cries echoing with the agony of the impending separation. She wails, unable to bear the separation, crying out Left's name as she clings to him. The household maids look on, startled by the intensity of her despair. He, however, feels a quiet sense of relief. With her physical form restored, he recognizes that she is at least back to her usual self. His face is squished by the force of her embrace, prompting Mayu to ask Liatrice to stop. As Liatrice tearfully apologizes, Left internally notes that while he appreciates the affection, her behavior is holding up everyone's work. Deciding to take matters into his own hands, he gently attempts to get the distraught adventurer's attention. He leans in close, whispering a proposition into her ear, beginning with the condition, "If it's all right with you." From a distance, Hiso watches the quiet exchange, wondering what Left could be saying and feeling a pang of guilt that they might have pushed too much responsibility onto the boy. The whispered words have an immediate effect. Liatrice's expression softens into a blush of understanding as she looks at the smiling boy and agrees to his terms. Her demeanor transforms instantly. Now, brimming with confidence and energy, she winks and declares that they can leave everything to her, stunning her party members into silence. She turns to her comrades, ready to depart. Her motivation is now clear as she announces that once their mission is complete, she and Left will go on a date. As the adventuring party finally walks away, Hiso remarks on how well Left knows how to handle Liatrice. Mayu adds that it's hard to tell which of the two is the elder, as Left watches them go from the manor steps. Outside the grand Austriac family manor, the day is bright and peaceful. Inside, Liatrice is in an exceptionally good mood, a fact Kyra points out. Left, watching her, smiles and expresses his gladness at her renewed motivation. Curious, Kyra asks him what words of encouragement he received. He blushes slightly, revealing that he was promised a shopping trip, but coyly adds that the rest is a secret. Later, he sits alone in a grassy field, contemplating the quietness that has settled in now that the members of Fire Dragon Strike are gone. His solitude quickly gives way to a simple, profound sense of boredom as butterflies flutter around his head. He lies back in the grass, a wave of melancholy washing over him as he realizes just how dependent he was on everyone else, feeling that he can't accomplish anything alone. The warmth of the sunlight and the pleasant breeze create a leisurely atmosphere, tempting him to simply give in to the comfortable feeling and drift away. But he abruptly sits up, rejecting the thought. He realizes with alarm that such complacency is the path to becoming useless, and fiercely resolves to become someone his parents can be proud of. His newfound determination leads him to question what he can do by himself. He summons his plant encyclopedia, recalling the recent additions: Karamizu, explosion grass, filto tree, and 5 other types. His thoughts turn to those other 5 species: Paraprapra, Saint Flower, Lulu grass, Mappy grass, and Riruka grass. He reviewed the 5 new types of plants in his encyclopedia, concluding that while beautiful, they lack properties useful in battle. They seem to be more like collectibles. He considered testing one, the filto tree, but a sudden vision filled his mind, a colossal tree erupting from the grounds of the Austria mansion, causing a massive commotion. In his mind's eye, his parents stood on a balcony, bewildered. His mother, recalling his plant-related gift, suggested that he be brought forward. The imagined scene worsened as ruffians appeared, demanding his parents' hand over the boy with such a valuable gift. This potential outcome solidified his decision. He needed to verify the filto tree's abilities somewhere remote, far from other people. This line of thought brought him back to Helio's advice. He should train for about 2 more years before entering the academy. He mused that Helio, as a unique gift holder himself, must have also struggled. He wondered what kind of gift Helio possessed, hoping he might reveal it one day. His contemplation continued, his gaze still fixed on the open book, but his thoughts drifted to someone else. He quietly wondered if Litina was doing well. Meanwhile, at her own estate, Litina was indeed preparing for the academy. Knowing her hardworking nature, she was surely striving every day. Yet, slumped over her desk, she admitted defeat, exclaiming that it was no good. She was stuck. She let out a frustrated grumble, her cheeks puffed out in a pout. The reason for her standstill was simple. No one was teaching her anything. Her frustration erupted. She slammed her hands on the desk, shouting that her father's sword talent was incredible, but training only once or twice a month was nowhere near enough. She quieted down, resting her head on her arms with a dejected look. She knew her father was busy, but couldn't help but feel that Left was so lucky to have a dedicated swordsmanship teacher. She reflects on her situation. While her academic knowledge is more than sufficient, even greater than that of exam students, her practical skills in swordsmanship and magic are the real issues. She is in a position where she must mostly rely on self-study. The reason for this predicament is her father's prejudice. He looks down on commoners, despite the fact that the town governed by their family, the Venom's, is full of energetic people with pure combat strength. This attitude prevents her from finding a suitable teacher among them. No matter how much she believes social status shouldn't matter, her father will not allow it. He would never accept that all she needs to do is study the contents of her gift to enter Namafala Academy. This path would mean she could never achieve her goal of graduating from the academy as valedictorian. She wonders what she should do, her thoughts drifting to Left. A single, heartfelt desire forms in her mind. She wants to see him. She recalls how the time she spent playing with him was her sanctuary from her strict parents. Her memories drift back to a pivotal moment, the day they received their gifts from the Creator God. At the ceremony, the results of her blessing were astonishing. The crystal ball revealed not one, but 3 gifts: magic fire eye, magic wind eye, and even swordsmanship too. The onlookers, including her parents, were amazed, questioning if it was even possible to receive 3 gifts, especially with one already at level 2. She was overjoyed. With gifts for both long-range and close-range attacks, she was certain her father would be pleased. A prodigy had arrived. In that moment of triumph, she felt she had finally become someone worthy of Left. Spotting him in the crowd, she eagerly called out, asking if he had received his gift yet. And yet, the outcome was not what anyone expected. When Left received his gift, it was merely a small plant sprout. Another boy standing nearby voiced his disdain, calling it a disappointment and remarking that Left's parents must be upset. Litina could only stare in shock, her hand covering her mouth. Returning to the present, Litina sits at her desk, clutching a bookmark. She reflects on how capricious and mischievous the gods are, thinking the trial before them was far more difficult than any childhood game. With renewed determination, she affirms to herself that she cannot give up. She stood resolute, her small fist clenched at her side. With no connections of her own and forbidden from venturing out alone, she realized she couldn't search for a teacher herself. There was only one path forward. She had to ask her father. Confronting him in his study, her father questioned her ambition, asking if she truly aimed to be valedictorian. She affirmed it without hesitation, declaring her desire to become the best and bring honor to their family. To do so, she explained, she needed to train her combat skills over the next 2 years. Her gaze was unwavering as she made her earnest plea. "Please, father," she implored, "find me teachers for both magic and swordsmanship." Elsewhere, Litina Venom stands beside her father, who gently pats her head. She reflects on her own limitations, realizing that she cannot do anything alone right now, and acknowledging how grateful she is to have someone she can rely on. Meanwhile, Left Alstria stands in the family garden, a hint of frustration on his face. He looks around, lamenting that he can't find any new plants to study. The thought makes him wish he could grow up more quickly. His search, however, leads him to an unexpected discovery near a bush. He stops, his eyes widening in surprise as he identifies the quivering, gelatinous mound before him as a slime. He instantly recalls information about the creature. It's a monster, specifically a green slime, a rare type with a semi-transparent, yellowish-green body. He knows it's harmless to humans, consuming only plants, which is why it's sometimes used in homes and called a garden cleaner. He wonders if it escaped from a nearby garden, but then notices a crucial detail. There is no slime trail, which it should leave as it digests. He deduces that it must be weakened, lacking the energy to even process food. He finds himself in a strange position, having just defeated goblins for his own convenience. He feels it would be odd to help a monster simply because it's harmless. He contemplates how to help it recover, reasoning that medicinal herbs would be ineffective on its liquid body. A potion, however, might work. With his mind made up, he spins around and dashes back into the mansion. As he runs up the stairs, the head maid, Kyra, spots him and calls out his name in surprise. He pays her no mind, rushing to a drawer and quickly finding what he sought, a low-grade potion. Clutching the bottle, he runs back outside, determined that he cannot simply leave a life to disappear right before his eyes. But upon returning to the garden, he finds he was too late. The slime is gone, and in its place a small, sparkling object rests on the ground. He kneels down, picking up the object. It's a magic stone, emerald-colored and transparent, glittering in his hand. He holds it up, comparing it in his mind to the magic stone of a goblin. This one is tiny, like a marble. The unexpected outcome leaves him startled and confused. He stared down at the tiny emerald stone, only for it to suddenly disappear from his open palm. His eyes widened in shock as the stone dissolved into nothing but fading motes of light. In its place, his plant encyclopedia materialized, hovering in the air before him. It was open to a new entry, displaying an image of the green slime. He realized with a jolt that the creature had been registered in his book. A wave of disbelief and excitement washed over him as he threw a triumphant fist into the air. The initial joy quickly gave way to overwhelming emotion, his eyes welling up as he struggled to accept that it could be true. He stared at the open encyclopedia, the words confirming his hope. A monster had indeed been registered. This was real. A sudden stinging sensation on his cheek brought him back to his senses. He recalled how Mayu would always prepare transformation potions for him, and wondered if a simple low-grade potion would suffice for this. Downing the contents of a small vial, he felt a wave of relief as the discomfort faded. His mind began to race, questioning the conditions for registration. He wondered if it was a matter of body composition. While it was true that green slimes only digest plants, making them somewhat plant-like, they were still undeniably monsters. He resolved to ask the members of Fire Dragon Strike for their perspective once they returned. Realizing he was alone, he decided to take the opportunity to verify what he could do now that the slime was registered. With a new sense of purpose, he hurried over to his desk. Sitting at the desk, he took a deep breath to steady himself. He reasoned that the process should be the same as it was for registering and summoning plants. With his encyclopedia open, he extended his hand and called out for the green slime. A familiar sensation washed over him as magic power drained from his body, just as it did with plants. Above his palm, a small orb of light began to coalesce. He watched in amazement as the light coalesced, solidifying in his palm into a small, quivering, gelatinous creature, the green slime. Holding his plant encyclopedia aloft, a look of triumph and wonder filled his eyes. He had done it. This confirmed his theory. Monsters registered in his book could indeed be materialized, just like plants. The small, gelatinous creature quivers slightly. Its body is translucent and jelly-like, reminiscent of a mizuwabi mochi dessert. Left gazes at the creature, a blush on his cheeks as he finds it surprisingly cute. In the background, Litina looks on with concern, asking if he intends to eat it. He, however, is more interested in its well-being. The green slime extends a small tendril, and Left gently asks if it is happy, noting that it seems to be. In response, the slime touches his finger with its appendage. Left wonders if it's an attempt to thank him. A realization dawns on him. He can feel the slime's emotions, suggesting it possesses enough intelligence to communicate. He feels a profound connection forming, a sense that they are gazing at one another, even though the creature has no eyes to speak of. He then considers its practical applications, musing aloud that while it is squishy and cute, it probably wouldn't be useful in a battle. He resolves to simply appreciate it as it is. But as he finishes his thought, the slime suddenly recoils from his touch. Both he and Litina are taken aback by the creature's abrupt reaction. It continues to hop away across the desk as Litina asks what's wrong. A wave of panic washes over Left as he worries that he has somehow made the slime dislike it. The creature comes to a rest atop Litina's head. She looks at Left and asks if he was planning to fight alongside it, wondering if there's a way to improve its mood. Her words strike a chord with him. He falls into deep thought, his hand to his chin, contemplating the intangible nature of trust. He gazes at the small green creature, deciding to give a name. Though he admits it's mostly for his own satisfaction, he wonders how naming a materialized entity from his encyclopedia might affect. He leans in, formally addressing the slime. Acknowledging its connection to the plant encyclopedia, he declares that its name is now Lime. In a whimsical vision, dolls representing himself and Litina seem to celebrate the occasion. He expresses his hope that he and Lime will enjoy their time together from now on. The moment the name is bestowed, the plant encyclopedia on the table erupts in a brilliant flash of light. Startled, Left stares in wide-eyed disbelief, questioning what is happening. He nervously picks up the glowing book, noting that he's never seen it shine so brightly. Upon inspection, he sees the label on the page has officially changed from green slime to lime. The implication dawns on him. He breathes in sharply, wondering if this page in the encyclopedia is now exclusively for lime. He tests this new theory, placing his hand on the book and attempting to materialize another creature. As he suspected, nothing happens. His suspicion is confirmed. His magic power had only decreased by 10 from the first materialization, leaving him with insufficient energy to summon another. He had assumed he could control multiple monsters of the same type, but now realizes he can only manage one at a time. His mind then wanders to strategic possibilities. He imagines that if he could materialize many green slimes, even though they are weak individually, they might be able to combine into a single, powerful entity that would be useful in battle. His strategic musing is cut short by a sharp, sudden pain in his head. He cries out, clutching his temples, and realizes with a shock, Lime can read his thoughts. He lies on his bed, examining the plant encyclopedia, which has opened to a new page dedicated to Lime. To his surprise, it resembles his own status screen. Instead of level, it shows rank, and in place of gift, it lists skills. He notes with a start that Lime's rank is a lowly F. Continuing his assessment, he sees that both its HP and MP are in the single digits, and it possesses no skills at all. With a playful wink, he thinks to himself that Lime is quite weak. The small slime seems to quiver slightly in response to the thought. As he muses that he expected Lime to have a skill like digestion, plant, the head maid, Kyra, appears at his open doorway. She announces that it is time for dinner, her voice interrupting his concentration. Her professional demeanor shatters the moment she sees the slime perched on Left's head. Kyra lets out a piercing scream, shouting his name in alarm. Startled by her outburst, Left realizes the time and thanks her, seemingly oblivious to her panic. Kyra's terror intensifies as Lime slides down on Left's face. She shrieks that slimes digest flesh and bone, convinced that the young master's face is about to melt away. In a frenzy, she screams for someone to fetch a healer. Despite her panic, he remains perfectly calm. He observes that Lime is carefully avoiding his nose and mouth, a surprisingly considered act for a monster. Seeing Kyra's distress, he decides it's time to test putting Lime back into the plant encyclopedia. His thoughts clarify his purpose. He needs to confirm if storage is possible, a crucial function for when he eventually registers larger, more cumbersome plant-type monsters. While he wouldn't mind keeping the small slime out, the experiment is necessary. Focusing his will, he activates the command. A brilliant light envelopes Lime as the storage function takes effect, beginning to pull the creature back towards the book. In a shower of sparkling particles, Lime vanishes completely, absorbed back into the pages of the encyclopedia. Kyra gasps in shock at the sudden disappearance, while Left simply watches the phenomenon unfold. He turns to the astonished maid with a warm, reassuring smile. He confirms that the storage worked and clarifies that Lime only digests plants. He then sincerely apologizes for startling her and thanks her for her concern. He summons the small slime, calling it by name. As Lime materializes in his hands, he explains to a surprised Kyra that his encyclopedia seems capable of registering plant-like monsters as well. He then turns his attention to the creature, asking to confirm its identity and inquiring about its experience inside the book storage. Kyra watches, stunned, realizing her young master is conversing with a monster. Later that night, within the Grand Austria estate, the news of a monster's presence causes a stir. His parents, Count and Selvia Austria, stare wide-eyed at the creature as it wobbles before them. The Count, his composure shaken, asks if this is yet another of his son's capabilities. As the slime jiggles, Left explains that it is feeling embarrassed by the attention. His father erupts in laughter at the charming absurdity, while his mother looks on, flustered but captivated. The initial shock quickly melts into parental warmth. The Count expresses his gladness that their son is getting along so well with them both. Sometime later, walking through town dressed for an outing, Left considers his next move. He realizes that if he can increase his number of plant-type monsters, he will be able to fight much more advantageously. His search leads him into a shop where he spots the very thing he needs. Found it, he declares to the shopkeeper, asking to purchase the item. Among the various plant-type monsters is the Treant. When defeated, it can yield a special material, noted for being exceptionally lightweight and useful for crafting both weapons and armor. Holding a piece of this very material, Left Austria finds a quiet, empty street to conduct an experiment. He focuses his thoughts on the wood, but nothing happens. He wonders if the material alone is insufficient for his purpose. He recalls his success with Lime, which involved a magic stone. A realization dawns on him. He needs a magic stone, specifically from a plant-like monster. He decides he must gather several different kinds to test his theory, resolving to try everything he can. He considers the magic stones he already possesses, leftovers from defeated goblins, but they yielded no results. He understands that magic stones contain magical essence and function as energy sources, much like electronic devices in his previous life. However, those circulating in the market are handled indiscriminately, and only someone with an appraisal gift can distinguish them. Defeating the monsters directly, he concludes, is the most reliable method. 1 week later, Left reflects on his quest. The plant encyclopedia offers no manual, forcing him to figure everything out through trial and error. While he sighs at the trouble, he also feels a thrill of excitement. Just then, a voice calls out, announcing a visitor, Helio from the Adventure Party Fire Dragon Strike. He turns to see Helio waving from the bottom of the steps. Left greets him warmly, and Helio approaches, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. He remarks that it feels like it's been a while, and Left asks what brings him here today. His friendly expression shifts to one of concern. Helio explains that he's here because someone is in a terrible situation. Left's own face mirrors the gravity of the news, understanding that the matter is serious. He leads Left to a room where a woman lies unconscious, surrounded by sunflowers. It is Liatrice, another member of their party, seemingly in a deep, unnatural slumber. After hearing the details from Helio, Left's expression hardens with resolve. He declares that he understands and will go out, promising to inform his parents of his departure. He arrives with Helio at what appears to be their party's headquarters. Hyso and Geo greet them at the door, with Hyso asking Helio how his meeting went. Left stands beside Helio, flustered and nervous, the image of the unconscious Liatrice still fresh in his mind. He arrived at the adventurer's headquarters to a boisterous welcome from Gladiolus, who scooped him up in a powerful hug. Wasting no time, the boy greeted the large man and immediately asked for Liatrice's whereabouts. His question was answered with a shocking sight. Liatrice was slumped over, her body appearing withered and lifeless. Behind her, a grotesque, tree-like figure seemed to writhe in agony. Left stared in disbelief as Mayu gravely explained that Liatrice had come down with an extremely serious illness. He reacted with alarm, declaring that they had to do something. Mayu gently took his hand, reassuring him that it was okay. She explained that they already had the special medicine they needed, then turned his attention back to Liatrice, announcing that he had arrived. At the sound of his name, the afflicted woman slowly lifted her head. Her form was bizarre, with flowering branches sprouting from her hair. In a faint, raspy voice, She questioned if it was truly him. She reached out a desiccated hand, still finding it hard to believe. With tears welling in his eyes, he smiled and confirmed his identity, offering a gentle hello to Liatrice. The confirmation was all she needed. In an instant, her withered form vanished, replaced by her vibrant, healthy self. With a joyful cry of his name, Liatrice lunged forward, enveloping the small boy in an overwhelming, suffocating embrace. Despite the force of the hug, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. As he relaxed in her arms, Mayu observed the scene with a thoughtful expression. She delivered her diagnosis to the other party members, left deficiency syndrome. With a smile, she declared Liatrice completely cured. Now that the immediate crisis was over, he announced that he had something he wanted to show everyone. His declaration piqued the interest of the adventurers. Liatrice, Mayu, and Helio all exchanged curious glances, wondering what the boy had in mind. He proudly presented his magical gift, the plant encyclopedia, which hovered before him. Placing his hand down, he called out a name, summoning a creature called Lime. He successfully completed the summoning, a small, shimmering green slime materializing on the table before the astonished adventurers. With a proud smile, he presented the creature, introducing it as Lime, his new family member. The slime wiggled, acknowledging its name, and he declared the surprise a success. The adventurers' reactions were varied. Gladiolus laughed, remarking that the little slime seemed more intelligent than he was, a thought Hiso found somewhat concerning. Liatrice and Mayu, however, were utterly charmed, cooing over how cute the little blob of water was. As the others admired the creature, Mayu's eyes widened with a sudden understanding. She asked if this meant he had discovered a way to register plant-type monsters. He confirmed her suspicion with an enthusiastic yes. She absorbed the information, a look of wonder on her face. The ability to register such creatures, she mused, truly expanded the possibilities. He then elaborated to Hiso, admitting that his current abilities were limited. However, he expressed his hope that with time, he would be able to register even stronger monsters. He gave an example, suggesting he could fight alongside his registered monsters, much like a traditional tamer. The idea clearly impressed both Mayu and Liatrice, while Gladiolus stroked his chin in thought. Suddenly, a firm hand clamped down on his shoulder, startling him. He looked up to see Helio, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Hiso sits across from Left and Gio, holding a peculiar, shriveled fruit. He announces that he has a story to tell, and Left, looking on with curiosity, agrees to listen. His story begins with a man who possessed the gift of monster control, a skill that earned him the title of tamer. He explains that this tamer had the great fortune to successfully control an A-rank monster. Following this incredible feat, the man's fame grew, and he quickly rose through the adventurer ranks, eventually reaching C-tier. Elsewhere, Liatrice and Mayu discuss the profession. Liatrice notes that being a tamer is generally seen as an unfortunate path, as controlling high-ranked monsters is exceedingly difficult, with most only capable of handling low-ranked creatures. Liatrice remarks that the man in the story must have been quite talented. Hiso confirms this, stating the tamer was exceptionally good at his craft. However, he adds a grim twist. One day, the tamer died abruptly. He then turns to Left, posing a direct question. What does he think was the cause of death? The unexpected question startles Left, his eyes widening as he processes the query. He quickly regains his composure, his expression turning serious and contemplative. Musing that there are too many possibilities, he ventures a guess. Perhaps the tamer made an enemy and was poisoned. His dark and serious theory is met with comical, wide-eyed expressions from Helio, Mayu, and Liatrice, while Hiso points with a look of amusement. Left, slightly flustered, asks for the correct answer, admitting that it's no surprise he was wrong since he wasn't confident in his guess. Hiso laughs, acknowledging that poison was certainly a plausible scenario. He then reveals the shocking truth. The tamer was killed by an arrow from a goblin, a lowly F-rank monster. The revelation leaves Left utterly stunned and speechless. He processed the story's grim lesson. The tamer had relied too much on his monsters and neglected his own strength, rendering even an A-rank beast useless upon his death. Hiso, seeing the boy's comprehension, acknowledged that registering monsters in the plant encyclopedia to fight alongside them was a viable strategy, yet he still had a point to make. He continued, explaining that he didn't want Left to suffer the same fate as the tamer. Hiso stressed that if Left truly wanted to become strong, his own training must be the priority. The advice struck a chord with the boy, who readily agreed. He understood now. He had been about to get his priorities wrong. No matter how many monsters he surrounded himself with, if he himself were to fall, it would all be for nothing. His face lit up with sincere gratitude, and he turned to thank Helio for always guiding him correctly. The earnest praise caught Helio completely off guard, leaving him flustered and stammering as the others looked on, amused by his reaction. The moment was shattered as Liatrice slammed her hands on the table, leaning directly into Left's personal space. She excitedly reminded him of their date promise, proclaiming that she had worked hard just as he'd asked. The boy could only stare, startled by her sudden, overwhelming presence. She pressed the issue, asking when would be a convenient time for him. Still pinned beneath her, Left managed to confirm that he did, of course, remember their arrangement. Before he could propose a time, however, Hiso cut in with an update. He informed them that the party had received another request, one that would take them away for about a week. The news caught Leatrice by surprise. Her expression instantly fell into one of utter devastation. The reward she had been anticipating, her date with Left, was suddenly postponed. As she reeled from the shock, Mayu calmly reminded her from behind Left that work always comes first. As Mayu patted the distraught Leatrice on the back, murmuring about the tough life of a high-ranked adventurer, Haiso turned his attention back to Left. He extended an invitation, asking if the boy would be willing to join them on their upcoming quest. The offer stunned him. "Me," he blurted out, his face flushing with a mix of shock and excitement. Leatrice's sorrow vanished in an instant, replaced by wide-eyed delight at the possibility. Haiso then explained his reasoning. Their destination was near a plant colony, a rare habitat for plant-type monsters. He saw it as a perfect opportunity for Left to expand his range and tame new allies. He expresses his desire to go, but worries he would just be in the way. Haiso, with a knowing smile, reassures him that his presence would actually be a great help, hinting that they have a special remedy for any potential issues. The reason for Haiso's confidence becomes clear as Leatrice appears on the floor, dramatically pleading for Left-chan to join them, calling herself the special remedy. Faced with her desperate plea, Left agrees. He tells Haiso that he understands and will ask his father and mother for permission. Haiso adds that if his parents give their consent, they will share the quest reward with him. His request was approved with surprising ease. Over dinner, Left reflects on how much his parents trust the members of the Fire Dragon Strike. They wish him well, telling him to have fun and be careful as night falls over the Austria estate. With permission secured, he begins to think about what he needs for the expedition. He recalls being told that the adventurers already have most of the camping equipment, so he just needs to gather his personal items. His preparations lead him to a familiar general store. The shopkeeper, an older woman, recognizes him as the blonde boy and notes that it's been a while. Left is surprised she remembers him, but she confirms that she does, identifying him as Helio's friend. He shyly introduces himself, stating that his name is Left. The shopkeeper smiles, committing his name to memory, and then asks if he has come from more medicinal herbs today. The boy clarifies that today, he is looking for something else entirely. The morning of departure finally arrives. Dressed in practical traveling clothes, Left stands beside a large sack and a backpack, announcing that he'll be in the party's care for the week. He wonders aloud what to do with all his luggage, mentioning he was told to bring as much as he wanted. His concern is quickly dismissed by Haiso's voice. The adventurer tells him not to worry about the amount, adding that he is counting on Leatrice to handle it. He and Mayu watched with admiration as Leatrice stepped forward with a confident flourish. She assured the young Left to leave everything to her, then asked him to separate the luggage he wanted to carry personally from the rest. The boy looked up, momentarily confused, recognizing the woman as Ryachi-san. With a warm smile, Leatrice extended her hand, clarifying that she would take all of his other belongings. Left quickly agreed, confirming with Helio that he would keep his valuables on his person. With a declaration of readiness, Leatrice taps her staff on the ground. Before the astonished eyes of Left and the other adventurers, the object before her vanishes completely, leaving them to wonder aloud if it truly disappeared. Helio then asks Left if this is his first time properly seeing her skill. Left confirms that it is, internally identifying the phenomenon as her magic void. Haiso elaborates on the ability, explaining to Left that Rhea possesses what is known as spatial magic, which they also use to carry their luggage. The term spatial magic catches the attention of Left's father, who murmurs it thoughtfully. Noticing his interest, Leatrice turns toward him. She offers to provide a detailed introduction to her magic sometime. An invitation Left's mother, Selvia, accepts with delight, saying she looks forward to it. For a brief, shared moment, the adventurers are lost in a fantastical vision of Leatrice as a radiant, ethereal being surrounded by flowers. The reverie breaks. Selvia smiles, telling Left that this is just typical Lady Leatrice, while the adventurer herself strikes a triumphant pose. Haiso then suggests it is time for them to depart. Seated inside the moving carriage, Left contemplates the journey ahead. 2 days of travel and camping, a 3-day stay, and 2 more days to return. He realizes with newfound gratitude how efficient the transportation of his past life had been, as more than half their schedule is dedicated solely to travel. The carriage presses onward, leaving the town so far behind that it shrinks to a distant silhouette on the horizon. As they venture deeper into the wilderness, Leatrice warns Left that monsters become more active and dangerous in this region. She asks for his help securing the carriage cover, a request given weight by the driver's comment that monster attacks are not uncommon. He thanks Mayu for using her magic to conceal their presence, acknowledging that they cannot let their guard down even while traveling. She responds with a quiet affirmation, her hand raised slightly. Suddenly, the gentle rocking of the carriage ceases. Mayu is the first to speak, pointing out that they've stopped. Her observation is confirmed by Leatrice, who calmly surmises they have probably encountered monsters. She instructs Left to remain still inside the carriage, causing the boy to startle. Outside, blocking the path, stands a hulking, pig-headed creature brandishing a massive double-bit axe. Its guttural voice echoes through the trees. The monster's face twists into a vicious snarl, its eyes burning with malice. From within the carriage, Left recognizes the creatures as orcs. Leatrice calmly identifies them as D-rank monsters, reassuring him that Helio and Gladiolus can handle it. In that same instant, Helio is already in motion, leaping forward and striking the ground with immense force, sending a powerful shockwave radiating outwards. Before he can even process the attack, Left realizes with wide-eyed astonishment that the battle is already over. The carriage lurches forward once more, resuming its journey. Liatrice remarks, as expected, that the encounter was over in an instant, while Mayu expresses her own surprise at how quickly the monsters were dispatched. After about 10 hours of travel, with Heiso now at the reins, the carriage slows. Inside, Left reflects with some disappointment that he missed seeing Helio and Gladiolus fight, pondering how they managed it without any obvious weapons. His thoughts are interrupted when Heiso calls out, announcing they will camp for the night and instructing the 3 passengers to disembark. Stepping out of the carriage, he is struck with awe by the sight before him. A vast grassland stretching all the way to the horizon, with not a single building in sight. Liatrice smiles, adding that there is a water source nearby, making it a good place to rest. As the group makes camp, Heiso tends to a horse and tells Mayu they need to get everything ready before sunset. He asks her to use her usual magic, and she quietly acknowledges his request. In response, Mayu closes her eyes and clasps her hands, invoking a spell called Sanctuary. A vast, shimmering dome of light materializes, enveloping their entire campsite. Left watches in awe as Gladiolus explains that the barrier will repel any monsters ranked 2 or lower, allowing them to camp with peace of mind. Mayu seems pleased that her contribution is appreciated. As the protective barrier settles, another member of the party prepares her own contribution, her hands gripping a long staff. She emerges from a shimmering spatial rift. It is Liatrice, who announces her intent to retrieve their luggage. Nearby, Gladiolus removes his heavy helmet with a relieved sigh, the sound of the clasp clicking shut. He watches his companions work with practiced efficiency, Gladiolus assembling a tent, Helio organizing supplies. The boy feels a slight flush of embarrassment, realizing just how experienced they all are at setting up camp. His thoughts are interrupted when Heiso turns to him, suggesting it's time for dinner. Eager to contribute, Left brightens and offers to provide vegetables for the meal. Heiso, intrigued, asks if he has registered any edible plants. Left proudly presents his glowing encyclopedia, confirming he has added 12 new pages of usable flora. While Heiso acknowledges how helpful this is, he expresses a hint of guilt for relying on the child. His concern is quickly overshadowed by a surprising confession. Liatrice, with an embarrassed blush, admits that none of the adventurers in their party actually know how to cook. Gladiolus laughs, awkwardly in agreement. He elaborates on their typical meal plan, explaining that when they aren't in an inn, their diet consists of long-lasting trail food. Mayu confirms this, listing items like dried meat and hardtack. The boy processes this information with a puzzled expression. He questions why they don't simply have Liatrice use her spatial magic to transport freshly prepared meals from inns. Liatrice clarifies that time within her alternate dimension flows at the same rate as the outside world, making such a plan unworkable. He understood the problem instantly. Because time passed normally within Liatrice's spatial magic, any pre-made lunches or raw meat would inevitably spoil. Seeing the boy's expression, Heiso apologized, explaining that Left would have to endure bland meals during their camp. This news, however, delighted Left, who realized this was a chance to repay the adventurers for their kindness. He then turned to Liatrice, politely asking if she could retrieve the luggage he had entrusted to her. Though momentarily surprised by the request, she readily agreed. In a flash, a collection of pots, pans, and utensils appeared from her spatial storage. Left proudly held up a ladle, declaring that he had brought all sorts of cooking equipment in anticipation of just such a situation. His declaration was met with stunned silence from the entire party. Seeing their bewildered expressions, he hesitantly asked for their permission to proceed. With a confident wink, he assured them, "Please, leave tonight's dinner to me." The offer sent Liatrice into a state of pure bliss, her face flushing as she excitedly realized she was about to have a home-cooked meal made by Left himself. As the Fire Dragon Strike party sets up camp for the night, Left, wearing a frilly apron over his clothes, offers his assistance. Mayu asks Gladiolus to fetch water, while Liatrice requests permission to use some dried meat, hardtack, and the fire pit. With the party's blessing, Left takes charge of the cooking. He directs Liatrice to place the hardtack into a pot, as Heiso confirms the fire is ready. Left explains his plan to use the juices from the rehydrated meat for flavor, finishing the dish with the umami from vegetables and herbs. He works with focused precision, adding a final pinch of salt before tasting the broth. Mayu watches him, completely entranced by his skill. Soon, he presents the finished meal, a hearty soup with smoked meat and vegetables, and a fresh salad with a crushed nut dressing. Liatrice takes the first spoonful of soup. As the flavor hits her palate, her eyes widen in pure, astonished delight. Her reaction is explosive. She declares the food is so delicious her cheeks are falling off. Gladiolus roars that it's super tasty, while Heiso expresses his amazement that the leaves he ground up created such a wonderful sauce. Smiling, Left offers them all seconds. Heiso tells the young cook that he should eat as well, but Left replies that he already taste-tested while cooking. Thanking them for their praise, he decides to join them, feeling that all his preparation was worthwhile. As they eat, Heiso recognizes the cooking utensils from the general store. Left confirms this, explaining that spices like pepper were too expensive. Instead, he used his plant encyclopedia skill to find suitable herbs, noting that his ability is useful for more than just combat. After the meal, Mayu approaches Left, marveling at how delicious everything was and asking if he learned to cook at home. Left brightly replies that he cooked in his previous life, before catching himself, realizing he can't reveal his secret. Mayu simply accepts his strange answer. He internally reflects on his past life and death, acknowledging that those memories have helped him survive in this new world. He cherishes the time spent with the adventurers and hopes to continue their relationship. As he thinks, Hiso tells him it's getting late and time for bed. Hiso waves goodnight, promising to see him tomorrow. As Left stands there, Beatrice suddenly calls out his name, her expression one of surprise and alarm. She cheerfully grabs Left's hand, announcing that he will be sleeping in their tent. The sudden development leaves Left bewildered, as he reminds himself that in the eyes of everyone else, he is merely a 10-year-old child. At the tent's entrance, Beatrice and Mayu, already settled in their night clothes, beckon him inside, patting the space between them and urging him to come sleep. He glances back in disbelief, only to see Gio outside, who apologetically explains that with his large build, the other tent is too cramped for 3 people. Left's face pales as he internally questions if this arrangement is truly acceptable. The 2 women appear before him in a soft, dreamlike haze, their invitation feeling like an alluring call to enter a forbidden, secret garden. Outside, the campsite is peaceful under the bright, full moon, the quiet night belying the chaotic situation unfolding within one of the tents. Now, lying rigidly between them, Left is overwhelmed by the sweet fragrance filling the small space. His face flushes as he realizes there is no way he can possibly calm down enough to sleep. Sensing his restlessness, Beatrice turns to him with a playful smile and asks if he is sleepy. Startled, Left can only manage to stammer that he is not particularly tired yet. His answer prompts Mayu to declare that she isn't sleepy either. Seizing the opportunity, Beatrice suggests that the 3 of them should talk for a while. The boy's eyes widen in panic. He feels completely trapped, with no possible escape. He nervously wonders what they could possibly discuss. Leaning closer, Beatrice whispers conspiratorially about having a girl's bedroom night, a knowing smile on her face. Overwhelmed and blushing furiously, Left's heart pounds as he blurts out a desperate protest. He's a boy. Inside their shared tent, Beatrice leans towards Left and Mayu, declaring that in their current situation, there's only one topic of conversation: love talk. Left, who had clearly been thinking of something else entirely, flushes with embarrassment, realizing his complete misunderstanding. Ignoring his flustered state, Beatrice presses forward, her face alight with curiosity. She asks Left directly if there's someone he likes, her question catching him completely off guard. Mayu clarifies the inquiry, specifying they mean someone he might want to marry. As the true meaning of their love talk sinks in, Left touches his chin thoughtfully, a blush still dusting his cheeks. He corrects them, explaining that rather than someone he wants to marry, there was someone he was supposed to marry. As he speaks, the image of a young Latina resin hum comes to mind, her gentle smile a memory from his past. His choice of words puzzles the 2 girls. They look at him, confused, asking what he means by having been betrothed to someone. Left seems hesitant to elaborate, stating that it was due to certain circumstances and that it's okay. Beatrice apologizes for asking too much, but her curiosity is piqued by his use of the past tense, and she points out that he said he was supposed to marry her. He explains that those circumstances are how he ended up with them in the Fire Dragon Strike party. He admits he was sad at the time, but now sees the good side of it. His brief, tragic tale is met with an outburst of exaggerated sympathy from Beatrice and Mayu, who collapse in a heap, wailing about how sad his story is. Having shared his part, Left turns the tables. He now wants to hear their stories, asking Beatrice about her own experiences. Flustered, Mayu quickly deflects, asking Beatrice if she's found someone. Beatrice freezes, realizing that if Left wants to hear her story, it means he wants to hear Mayu's as well. Mayu tries to appeal to Left for support, but he simply looks on, waiting for an answer. Cornered, Beatrice turns to Left, her face bright red. She stammers a confession. She has never actually been in love with anyone. To everyone's surprise, Mayu quietly admits the same is true for her, leaving Left utterly astonished by their revelations. She confirms this is correct, explaining that she joined the adventure party Fire Dragon Strike when she was only 11. For the 3 years since, she has been surrounded by older people, giving her no chance to meet anyone her own age. Her words spark a realization in Left. He hadn't considered that Beatrice was still in her teens. Beatrice, meanwhile, grows flustered, exclaiming that the adventurers they encounter are almost exclusively old men, with practically no one in their age group. Left then asks about a party called Blade of Calm Night. Mayu clarifies that they are a high-ranking adventurer party active in the neighboring Lanterna Duchy. She adds that this party includes 2 people their age, one of whom is a hero from a Count's family. Beatrice expresses interest in meeting this hero, noting their shared noble background. Mayu, however, immediately dismisses the idea, calling him battle-crazy and an off-putting bad influence she wants to keep Left away from. Changing tactics, Beatrice asks about their own party members, Helio and Gladiolus, but the suggestion is met with a swift and universal nope. Reincarnated concedes that the hero they just discussed is likely just focused on fighting and not a romantic prospect, as Left looks on, feeling the sting of the rejection. They all agree that since party members are together constantly, they become more like family than romantic interests. Left voices his understanding. Reincarnated then concludes that, regardless, there is no one around who could be a potential romantic partner for them. The idea of a party having a bond, like family, resonates with Left. He pictures Helio and Gladiolus nodding in unwavering agreement and feels a pang of jealousy for such a connection. The girls notice his contemplative expression. Their attention now fully on him. Reincarnated asks directly, "Are you going to become an adventurer, Left Sean?" Caught off guard, Left feels a sudden, immense pressure to answer. He clenches his fist, the weight of the question settling upon him. When asked if he wants to become an adventurer, Left Austria looks away, a blush on his cheeks. He admits that he is not yet sure. His uncertainty stems from his observations of Heiso's party. He reflects on the life of an adventurer and the bond shared within a party, finding it all truly amazing. He recalls the easy camaraderie between them, like the warm, knowing smiles shared between Mayu and Beatrice. Their encouragement was direct and heartfelt. They assured him that if he ever did become an adventurer and form a party, they were certain it would be just as great as theirs. Their affection became more playful as they doted on him, pinching his cheeks. Mayu called him cute and smart, while Beatrice declared him their healing little brother. Left recalls how the two of them continued praising his soothing presence, their words eventually turning into a flurry of compliments that he couldn't quite follow. Their late-night antics were cut short by a stern Heiso, who demanded to know how late they had been messing around, pointing out that their foolishness had left all three of them sleep-deprived. Sometime later, the steady rattling of a wooden cart marks their progress along a road. From his seat in the wagon, Left looks out in amazement. They have arrived at the city of McCall, and he marvels at the immense gate and the long line of other travelers waiting for entry. At the checkpoint, a city guard stares at their travel pass with a look of disbelief. Noticing the man's reaction, Heiso clears his throat and steps forward, stating that he will handle the conversation. His intervention with the guard was swift and effective. A staff member soon appeared, identifying the group as the members of Fire Dragon Strike, and explaining they would be guided to their lodging through a private entrance. Left could hardly believe it. They were allowed to enter without waiting in line. The party is then led into a grand, opulent hall where a lavish meal awaits them. Seated at the table, Left takes a bite and finds the food delicious. Heiso encourages him not to hold back, prompting Left to express his astonishment that their client is covering the cost of such a fine inn and all their meals. He then moves to the window, marveling at the amazing view of the bustling town square below, complete with a central fountain and various market stalls. Meanwhile, in their shared room, Helio is so impressed with the accommodations that he suggests to Gio they should make this their new base of operations. Gio, however, dismisses the idea, telling him to quit joking around. Heiso chuckles at Left's earlier surprise, explaining that if the party had to pay for such luxurious lodging themselves on every job, they would be broke in no time. The reality of an adventurer's finances dawns on Left. With the meal finished, Heiso tells Left it's time for a bath. As Left agrees, Heiso adds a thoughtful note, mentioning that while their party is currently based in the town of Fry, adventurers don't stay in one place forever. The thought gives Left pause, making him consider the transient nature of their lives. The next morning arrives, but the peace is shattered by a loud, unwilling cry of protest. The source of the commotion is Beatrice, who is thrashing about and screaming that she refuses to go on the mission. She wails that she doesn't want to be the only one separated from Left. Seeing her state, Mayu turns to Left and declares Operation IDI is a go, telling him that Beatrice will cooperate if he agrees to go on a date with her once she returns. Her tantrum vanishes in an instant. Beatrice, now beaming with joy, exclaims that the idea is wonderful. She excitedly tells Left that she has already researched all the best shops in McCall, so she could be his perfect escort. Left agrees to the plan, promising to do his best and wait for her. Seizing the opportunity, Heiso and Gladiolus urge Mayu to take her away while she's compliant. And so, Beatrice is bundled into a carriage and driven off, her protests about the mission resuming as she is carted away. It seems this particular job involves only her. In Beatrice's absence, the rest of the party discusses her solo mission. Gladiolus remarks to Left that Beatrice never oversleeps when he's around. Heiso agrees, noting that her current job, delivering large ship parts inland, is perfectly suited for her space magic. Mayu then adds her own observation, telling Left that ever since he joined them, Beatrice seems to have much more fun every day. Left looks on, a little surprised by the comment, as Mayu expresses her gladness at being able to help. Her words prompt a moment of reflection among the senior members. Mayu muses that thinking back to when Beatrice first joined their party, her current happiness is almost hard to believe. They recall a time when she would completely shut down her emotions, never smiling at all. The revelation shocks Left, who hadn't known this side of her. Seeing his reaction, Mayu leans in, explaining that this is a request from her as Beatrice's big sister. She asks Left to give Beatrice a reward when she returns completely worn out from her mission. He is to make sure she has as much fun as possible the next day. He understands now. With a determined blush, Left clenches his fists and accepts the task, telling Mayu to leave it to him. His declaration is interrupted by Hiso, who reminds the group they should get going and asks Left about his plans. Left recalls his promise to show Hiso a place with useful plants. Watching them, Mayu smiles, thinking of Left as a reliable little brother. Hiso presses him, asking if he had forgotten. The boy apologizes profusely, explaining that he simply got caught up in all the new experiences, camping outside and exploring the city of McCall. His earnest apology makes Gladiolus boom with laughter. He pats Left's head, pleased to hear that the boy has been having a great deal of fun. The large warrior then offers a final piece of advice, telling Left not to forget the main event that's in store for him. Left looks up a little sheepish. The party of adventurers stands at the edge of the woods. Hiso declares that when it comes to finding plants, the monster forest is ultimately the best location. Upon entering, Left notes how dark it is compared to the entrance they used before. Mira, unconcerned, simply says it's fine as she begins to gather magical energy in her hands. She casts her spell, Holy Light, and a cascade of glowing particles erupts from her palms, bathing their immediate surroundings in a gentle luminescence. Left looks up at her, concerned that the brightness will reveal their location to monsters. Mira reassures him that it's fine, explaining that monsters are unable to see this particular kind of light. As they proceed, Hiso turns his head slightly, asking Left if he has noticed the sweet smell that has begun to permeate the air. The source is a strange, jawed plant. Mira identifies it as slobberweed, one of their objectives. She explains that its highly viscous slime contains a pheromone that attracts and immobilizes animals. Hiso acknowledges this, but his attention is drawn to a nearby tree, which gives him a bad feeling. He tells Gio to be ready, and Gio confirms he is on it. He then instructs Left to watch closely, revealing that the tree is their other target, a rank D monster called a hammerwood. As he speaks, the tree's massive branch swings down toward Gladiolus. With a loud creak of stressed wood, Gladiolus's armored hand intercepts the attack, stopping the powerful limb in its tracks. Left stares, utterly amazed that he caught it with a single hand. Gladiolus merely laughs, booming that the feat was nothing. As the battle with the hammerwood commences, Mira provides crucial intelligence. She confirms the monster is stationary, but warns that its attack power is rated rank C, on par with an ogre. Hiso, having finished his own briefing for Left, gives the signal. Go ahead, he tells Gio, who eagerly responds, got it. He vaults over the creature's massive, swinging limb, striking it decisively from above. Meanwhile, Gladiolus presents Left with a magic stone, explaining it's the reason they came. Hiso reinforces the point, warning that they'll be in trouble if Left doesn't accept it. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the boy clutches the precious stone. He thanks them profusely and announces his intent to register it in his encyclopedia right away. He holds the stone over his open book, anticipating the registration, but a moment later, a flicker of confusion crosses his face. Nothing happens. The attempt fails. Left realizes he can't register it, just as he couldn't register the slime because he wasn't the one who defeated it. Mira voices a theory. Perhaps the registration has a specific condition tied to who delivers the final blow. Hiso suggests a test. He tells Left to try registering the slobber weed they collected. Left agrees, and this time, the book glows as it accepts the data. He realizes with relief that plant registration works without issue. Mira thoughtfully considers the new information. She concludes there are two possibilities for the monster registration failure. Either Left wasn't the one who defeated it, or not all plant-like monsters can be registered, perhaps requiring another specific condition. Understanding the limitation, Hiso decides they should move on and search for something else. Left internally agrees, acknowledging to himself that he doesn't seem capable of defeating a monster like the hammerwood on his own to meet the condition. The party ventures deeper into the forest. As they travel under the starry night sky, Left's attention is captured by the various fungi growing near the path. His curiosity as a chronicler of plants rekindled. His search for a suitable monster continued until Gladiolus pointed towards a large, toothy creature rooted to the ground. He gestured towards the carnivorous plant, asking Left for his opinion on that particular specimen. The adventurer remarked on its gruesome state, noting a bulge in its stem and guessing it might have recently eaten a goblin. Left, looking up from his encyclopedia, saw the bulge with a start, realizing with disgust that its meal had already been digested. As the party observed the massive plant from a distance, Hiso explained its nature. He identified it as a carnivorous plant, a rank E monster. It bites anything that passes near it, but is immobile and has low defense, making their recent observation of it feeding a rare moment to witness. He continued, clarifying that these traits make it quite easy to handle, as it possesses a distinct weakness. Hearing this, Left clutched the magic stone in his hand and asked hopefully if he could defeat it. In response, Gladiolus stepped forward with a small rock. He announced he would demonstrate the weakness, explaining that the creature seemed to possess some level of hearing. Left watched, his eyes wide with curiosity. He then tossed the rock, which landed with a soft thud a short distance away from the plant monster. The entire party watched from the edge of the clearing, waiting to see what would happen. The plant reacted instantly, lunging with shocking speed toward the sound. Its stem stretched out as it snapped its jaws shut on empty air. Left let out a gasp, startled by the sudden, aggressive movement and questioning if it was truly a low-rank monster. After its lunge, the plant lay completely still on the ground. Gladiolus pointed, explaining that while its movements are quick, it cannot move again immediately after an attack. That immobility, he declared, was its weakness. Left's expression shifted to one of understanding as he absorbed the lesson. Gladiolus confirmed that once the plant extends its stem, it requires a period of recovery before it can act again. With the creature now helpless, Gladiolus presented a knife to the boy. He explained that in this state, Left could take it down with ease. A look of determination spread across Left's face as he accepted the task. He clenches his fists in triumph, holding the magic stone from the carnivorous plant he just defeated. With a determined glint in his eyes, he prepares to compare it with the stone from the one Helio had vanquished. His excitement quickly faded. Despite his efforts, placing the stones on the ground yielded no response from his plant encyclopedia. Hyso theorizes that perhaps Left's gift level is too low or has some other restriction, while Mayu can only agree that the situation is strange, admitting she doesn't know what to make of it. The attempt proved fruitless. The only result from the day's hunt was the slobberweed. Left stands dejected, wondering why Lime was the only monster he could register. The mystery surrounding his gift and the monsters of this world only grew deeper. The next day, he sits by a town fountain, having made plans to go out with Liatrice. He recalls that she returned home late the previous night and wonders if she will manage to wake up in time. His wait is not long. Liatrice arrives, apologizing for her tardiness. Left, looking up in surprise, assures her he just arrived himself. He is momentarily stunned, remarking on how lovely she looks in her new outfit and that her hair seems different. She smiles, and they prepare to leave together. She beams, overjoyed that he noticed her hair. With a bright, happy expression, she explains that Mayu was the one who styled it for her that morning. Elsewhere, Mayu lets out a sigh of exhaustion, a hairbrush still in hand. She reflects on how tough it was to get Liatrice's bedhead under control. She stands in a messy room, looking over at Liatrice, who is still sound asleep in bed. Mayu confirms to herself with relief that she managed to get her there on time, revealing the frantic, behind-the-scenes effort it took.